Hi, it's Jack, and I've been really busy over the past couple of weeks doing daily YouTube episodes looking at the trial of Donna Adelson. And this is a collection of everything that I have done, as well as the deep dives into the most revealing testimony across the 2 weeks of the trial. So you're going to hear from witnesses like Luis Rivera, Wendi Adelson, Robert Adelson, and Cunningham. You will hear Charlie Adelson's wiretaps. Donna Adelson herself speaks. Kristen Adamson and Linda Bailey, two attorneys who tried to speak in defense of Donna. Richard Schargin, who is a friend of Donna and Harvey Adelson. Jeffrey Lacasse makes an appearance as well. It's a huge, huge bit of work covering all the key evidence in the Donna Adelson trial. Spoiler, at the very end, Donna Adelson is found guilty for her involvement in the murder of Dan Markel. Do enjoy.
And what was the purpose of this murder as you understood it?
That they wanted the kids.
Who wanted the kids?
Wendi.
Luis Rivera claims it was Wendi Adelson who wanted Dan Markel murdered, but his words, they don't fully believe it. I'll show you what's hiding inside the way he said it. This is never a truer word. And this is a quick look at day one of the Donna Adelson trial. I'll be doing these every day throughout the trial, daily breakdowns focused on the most telling courtroom statements. And each week I'm going to do then a deep dive into the most revealing testimony that we've seen. Now, if you're new here, this isn't like any other trial coverage. I don't talk about juror expressions or courtroom gossip or even the legal issues. I focus on one thing only, and that is the words people use when they're on the witness stand. And what those words reveal about the truth, about deception, and also the intentions, the motivations of the person saying them. So let's go and look at the person who stood out for me on day one, hitman Luis Rivera. Now, the headlines after he testified, they said he was adamant that it was Wendi who was behind the murder of Dan Markel. Not Donna Adelson who's on trial, but Wendi Adelson, Donna's daughter. And at face value, that is what Luis Rivera said. Until you look at the words that he actually went with, let's take a look at some of the highlights from his testimony.
And then I said, if you would, please put the number 4 next to the man who was killed, and you did that with Danny Markel, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then I said, if you would, put the number 5 next to the lady that wanted the man killed. And did you do that?
Yes, I did.
And was that with Wendi Adelson?
Yes, I did.
Now, that one was just a little bit strange. Did you catch it? Did you do that? This is about putting the number 5 next to a picture of Wendi Adelson. And he says, yes, I did. That's fine. He put the number 5 next to Wendi Adelson. And then he's asked, and was that with Wendi Adelson? And he doesn't say, yes, it was, which would be the correct, grammatically correct reply. It was once again this repetition of, yes, I did. So this is really distant. This is not him saying that he thinks that Wendi did this or he knows that Wendi did this. This is him just talking about putting a number next to a picture. It's not quite the same as saying, look, I know she did it. She ordered this trial, and saying all those words. In fact, it's really non-committal. He slips up. Was that Wendi Adelson? Yes, I did. That doesn't make any sense. Let's hear some more of his testimony.
And the woman who wanted him to be killed, past you and Sigfredo and Katie, the woman who wanted him to be killed was Wendi Adelson, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
It was she wanting her children, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so here he has the word absolutely. It was Wendi Adelson who passed all this information on. He says, yes, ma'am. It was she wanting her children, correct, is the question. And he says, absolutely. Now, it was she wanting her children, correct, is a yes or no question. We can answer that question with yes or no. And he doesn't say yes or no. Instead, he goes for absolutely. Kind of like a super yes, like yes and even more yes, which shows he has a need to persuade of the answer here. Now, why do people feel a need to persuade of the answer? Sometimes it's because they really, really want us to believe it. Sometimes it's because they're lying and they think a simple yes isn't strong enough. They think an absolutely will be more likely to persuade us. I think what we've got here is his need to persuade. And why do I think that? Let's look at another time that Luis Rivera uses absolutely.
Did you follow Dan Markel again during this second trip?
Yeah.
Did you follow him to the daycare?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you actually see him drop his children off at school that morning?
Absolutely, yes.
So here we have an absolutely yes. And this is a curious way of answering. Did you follow him that morning? Yes. Did you follow him to the daycare? Yes, ma'am. So those are yes/no questions, and he's giving a yes. And then it's, did you see him drop his children off? And he says absolutely yes. So we've got that word absolutely again. This need to go beyond yes to be really sure. It's a super yes. And here he's using it, I think, potentially to say, look, we knew the kids were not going to be around about the time of murder, so we absolutely saw him drop the kids off. He feels this need to persuade us. So he seems to use absolutely to persuade us of what is going on. Let's go into some more from Luis Rivera.
Was there a reason the murder had to be done on the day that it was done?
I believe so. I believe he was about to leave.
Who was about to leave?
Markel.
About to leave town?
Yeah.
How did you get that information?
I got it from Tudo,
Where did he get the information?
from Katie,
How did she know?
Wendi.
So here we have another implication of Wendi, that Wendi gave Katie the information that went to Tuto, that went to him so they could do the murder of Dan Markel, saying that all roads lead back to Wendi. However, look at how he answers the three questions. So the first one was, how did you know? He says in 5 words, I got it from Tuto. Now that's a perfect answer. It's talking about I, so he's saying who's involved. I got it from Tuto. He's putting himself in there. He is owning this answer. I got it from Tuto. So also there's another person there, so he's identifying who he got it from. And then it's a little bit like Chinese whispers, because the further away it gets, the less committed he is to the answers. So where did Tuto get it from? And it's just 2 words this time, from Katie, not he got it from Katie. All of a sudden things are starting to go missing from the answers here. It's just from Katie. And where did Katie get it from? This time it's just one answer, Wendi. He is much less committed to saying Wendi was involved. He doesn't, in my opinion, have any certainty that this came from Wendi. This is maybe something he believes, he's worked out, he's thought, but he doesn't know for a fact that this came from Wendi, which is why his answers get shorter and shorter and shorter the more distant the answers get from him. So he's not committed to the thought, the belief that it was Wendi. He might think it's possible, but he's not committed. He's open to so many more ideas. Now, you might be with me going, that's okay, that's all a little bit vague, but listen, his words belie himself. He wants, for some reason, he wants to give the impression that Wendi is behind this. He seems to be on a mission to blacken Wendi's name here and no one else's. However, this answer reveals, I believe, what he knows to be the truth. Have a listen.
And what was the purpose of this murder as you understood it?
That they wanted the kids.
Who wanted the kids?
Wendi.
Now, you might come out of that saying, oh yeah, he's implicated Wendi again. Who wanted the kids? He says, Wendi. But it's the part before that that gave it away. Did you spot it? What was the point of this murder, he's asked, and he says that they wanted the kids. So for all he seems to want to point every single finger at Wendi, when he was asked what was the point of the murder, he said they, more than one person, more than just Wendi. He believes it was the Adelsons in the entirety that wanted the kids. It wasn't just Wendi. They wanted the kids. Now, this is not me saying Wendi Adelson had nothing to do with it, that she's completely innocent. This is me saying that this guy does not know for certain that these things came from Wendi. His words belie him. He has no commitment. Whenever it comes to pointing the finger at Wendi, his words have low commitment to the fact that it was Wendi that was involved in this. For some reason, though, I can't imagine why that is, he is on a mission to frame Wendi while making Donna look like a good person. Go figure. So that is Daily Breakdown number 1. Wendi Adelson took the stand today, and while she appeared to be cool and composed, her words were something else entirely.
Did you refer to your ex-husband as Jibbers?
I did.
What is the meaning of Jibbers?
Jibbers was just a silly name that a friend helped me come up with to basically make him feel less scary. It was nonsense.
When asked if she called Dan Markel a series of insulting names, she couldn't say a simple yes. Wendi sidestepped, she reframed, and she dismissed that one as just a silly name. And at one point, she led with, to be honest, a phrase that always makes you wonder, why did she feel the need to say that? This is a quick look at day 2 of the Donna Adelson trial. I'm doing these every day throughout the trial, short breakdowns focused on the most revealing language from the witness stand. And each week I'm going to release a longer main episode which takes a deeper dive into the most significant testimony. If you're new here, this coverage is different. There's no speculation, there's no gossip, there's no legal breakdowns. I focus only on the words, because that's where the truth tries to hide. Now, the theory is that Donna ordered the murder of Dan because, well, she wanted Wendi, or maybe even Donna wanted herself, to have full control of the kids. So she saw a chance to get rid of Dan in order to make this all happen. So let's dive in. And Wendi had a real problem on the stand with yes, no questions. Those are questions like did you, would you, where you can answer with yes or no or positive or negative. Questions like this one.
When your mom is really upset about something, does she talk about it a lot?
Yes.
A yes, no question. When your mom's really upset about something, does she talk about it a lot? And Wendi just goes straight for a yes. A very, very truthful answer. It's a truthful form of answer when someone's asked a yes or no question and they say a yes or they say a no. Highly likely they are telling the truth. You see, people when they're lying or got something to hide, they seem to avoid saying that yes or no question. So let's have a look at another bit of testimony.
Did you refer to him as an STD?
I don't remember saying that.
Tab 5.
It looks like I made that analogy.
Danny is an STD. One wrong mistake marrying him, and this will never go away. Is that what you said?
I did.
And did you share that kind of sentiment with your mother?
I don't remember ever saying that, so I don't think it's something I said very often.
So, did you refer to Dan as an STD? She says, I don't remember saying that. It's a yes, no question. There's no yes or no there. Sure enough, as happened many times in the testimony today, when Wendi was drawn towards the messages, she suddenly was aware that she did say that. Yeah, I did say that. And did you share that sentiment with your mother? She's asked. And she doesn't say yes or no. She avoids it entirely. She says, I don't remember ever saying that, so it's not something I said often. Well, there's no yes or no there, and the mother's completely disappeared from her answer. So did you share it with your mom? And if you did, why are you frightened of telling us that? Why don't you just give us a straight on yes? Also, she doesn't say directly, I did call Dan an STD. Even though it's there in black and white in front of her, she downplays it and tries to make it sound all fancy. So rather than just calling him a horrible name, she says, oh yeah, I made that analogy, downplaying the horrible insults that she fired in the way of Dan Markel. Here's some more from Wendi on the witness stand.
Did you refer to your ex-husband as Jibbers?
I did.
What is the meaning of Jibbers?
Jibbers was just a silly name that a friend helped me come up with to basically make him feel less scary. It was nonsense.
Did it reference Jew in boots?
That I don't remember.
So we have, did you call Dan Jibbers? And she says, I did. It's well documented that she did. What did Jibbers mean? And she says, Jibbers was just a silly name that a friend helped me come up with to basically make him feel less scary. Two indicators of some deception going on there. Jibbers was just a silly name. She's trying to downplay it there. It's just a silly name. Nothing else behind it. No horribleness about his religion behind it whatsoever. Just a silly name. That word just comes up in deception all the time, especially people trying to minimize something down and make it seem a lot smaller than it is. It's just a silly name that a friend helped me come up with. By the way, don't blame me all the way for this horrible name that Dan Markel had, Jibbers. It was a friend who helped me to basically make him seem less scary. So basically means there's a lot more to it. If something basically happened, it means a lot of other things happen. So basically means there is a little bit more going on to it than meets the eye. And she's trying to just make this really small in size with words like just and like with basically. And then, is it about being Jewish and having boots? And that's a yes or no question again. And what does she say? That I don't remember. Let's go some more from Wendi on the witness stand.
Did you, during the phone conversations you had with your brother during that time, did you talk much about your marital problems?
I mean, to be honest, I don't remember, but I'm sure we talked about it.
So, did you talk about your marital problems with Charlie? And she says, to be honest, I don't remember. She's in court. She's given an oath. Why does she feel the need to point out that at this point she's been honest? Two things could be going on. Everything else could be a lie, and this is the first time that she's been honest, and she says, to be honest. Or liars quite often feel that by saying something like, to be honest with you, or honestly, or to tell the truth, by pointing out, flagging up that what's coming is truthful, they think that the lie will be believed. Is that what's going on here? To be honest, I don't remember. Do you really not remember the conversation you had with Charlie, Wendi? I'm not sure I believe you. I think that, to be honest, is to cover up the fact you're not telling the truth. Here's some more from Wendi.
You know about the TV repairman left about, did you say about 9?
The truth is I don't really remember, but, something like 9 or 10.
Definitely before 10 or by 10?
Yes, that's my best memory.
Yeah, what time was the TV repairman there at your house, conveniently at the exact same time as Dan's murder was being arranged? She says, the truth is, I don't really remember. So the truth is very similar to that, to be honest, which is, here's some truth coming up. Honestly, believe me, this is the truth. I need to persuade someone is being truthful when she may well remember a hell of a lot more. And I don't really remember, so which means, yeah, I do remember in a way, but I don't really remember is just qualifying it down there, just trying to make it all sound a little bit vague. But to be honest, the truth is, suggests to me there's some real curation going on in Wendi's testimony. Now, I've pulled her apart a lot for not telling the truth. I think we get the truth here from Wendi because it's a very different pattern of words. Listen.
You did offer testimony in November of 2023 as well, right, on a related case?
Yes,
Okay.
October.
And did your mom, when you spoke to her in November of 2023, offer you any advice or thoughts about how you should act or behave or what you should say in court?
Yes,
She did.
she did.
And what was that?
I can't tell you I remember exactly, but she was hoping I would be supportive of my brother.
Okay. And do you know what her thoughts were afterwards?
I do.
Okay. And what were they?
She was devastated.
She didn't feel you were supportive.
No.
So unlike a lot of what we've seen, we get some yes, no questions in there, and Wendi is giving us yes and no, positive or negative answers. And when she's asked, what did your mum think about your testimony at Charlie's trial, she says she was devastated. 3 words, no storytelling, no persuasive language, nothing added in there that doesn't need to be in there. A suggestion that the truth is being told, and that is that Donna was devastated about Wendi's testimony at Charlie's trial. Day 3 of the Donna Adelson trial, and it's very much a story of one broken TV, 2 different stories.
And what I'm looking at when I turn it on is a screen that's been partially shattered, that's been struck by an object.
There were some vertical lines on the TV. I didn't know if maybe one of my kids had tapped it or touched it, but it wasn't working.
Yesterday, Wendi Adelson testified, and she used the story of that broken TV to explain where she was and why her mother might have called her on the morning Dan Markel was murdered. Today, her ex-boyfriend Jeffrey Lacasse took the stand. He also talked about the damaged TV, but they described it in 2 different ways. In fact, as we'll see, they had 2 different hidden agendas. Which one do you go with? That's going to be up to you, but we'll see as we take a quick look at day 3 of the Donna Adelson trial. Now, I'm doing these daily, focused only on the words used by the witnesses on the stand. And then each week, I'll release a deeper statement investigation into the most revealing testimony. Now, if you're new here, this isn't like other trial coverage. I don't analyse courtroom behaviour. I analyse the words and statements because it's in the language we find what's real and what's not. So let's go on to what happened today in court. And Jeffrey Lacasse was on the stand and he spoke about the broken TV like this.
Was there a time when you were over at Ms. Adelson's residence and you observed that her TV was broken?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about that. When did that occur?
That would have been around the week of June 11th to 18th, somewhere in that time period. I went over Wendy's to spend time with her and the kids, and she asked me to take a look at the television. I turned it on. She said there was a problem with the TV, so I turned it on expecting to see like input 1 flashing, or the kids pushed the wrong button or whatever. And what I'm looking at when I turn it on is a screen that's been partially shattered, that's been struck by an object. So she had a broken TV.
All right, and did she tell you what happened to the TV, how it got into that?
No, she kind of asked me to look into the TV as if, she didn't know. I looked around. It was impossible to me that the kids would have done it, but I didn't know a better explanation at the time. So I was kind of mystified as to what happened. I mean, it looked like a human being, between 5 and 6 foot, something like that. It stood in front of it and hit it. That's what it looked like. But she was asking me.
Okay, so it was like an impact mark, like a round impact with spider webs.
Exactly. Then the image, the pixels are distorted. Most people have probably seen this. So it's, and it wasn't completely shattered. You could sort of see what was going on the television. But it's not a TV anybody would normally watch.
So that's Jeffrey talking about that broken TV. And I thought back to yesterday when Wendi spoke about the broken TV. Her description, at least of the damage, was very different, but listen to the way and the words she uses when she talks about it.
Did you have an appointment at your residence on Aqua Ridge?
I did.
What was the nature of that appointment?
I had an appointment with the Geek Squad. There were some vertical lines on the TV. I didn't know if maybe one of my kids had tapped it or touched it, but it wasn't working. And so I had an appointment, and they were scheduled to come sometime between 8 and 12.
And was that the TV that was the same TV that your brother joked he got you as a divorce present because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman?
Yes.
Okay. And on the morning of the murder, did your mom text you about the TV repair guy being on the way or coming to your house?
She did. I didn't buy the TV, and the TV had an insurance policy that came with the Geek Squad help. So I think they reached out to her first, and then she let me know that they were coming.
So did you spot any differences? What I'm going to look at here is the differences and also the way that both Wendi and Jeff answer the questions that they're asked. So let's start with Jeff. Now, Jeff was asked, were you aware of a broken TV? And he said, yes, I was. And then he was asked, tell me about it. When did that occur? And you can see that he answers the question. In fact, he's asked 2 questions and he answers both of them. That is a signal of someone being very honest, actually keeping track of 2 questions and not only answering the most convenient one. So when did that occur? He says June the 11th, 18th, somewhere in that time period. And then tell me about that. He tells the story of being invited to Wendy's, being asked to look at the television. There was some problem with the TV. He thought it was just going to be on the wrong setting. But no, when he says he turned it on, as if it had been partially shattered, had been struck by an object. So he tells a very direct story there. He answers the question twice, and he says it's partially shattered. It's been struck by an object. Very different from Wendy's description, which we'll see in a minute. But then he's asked, so did she tell you what happened to the TV? And he does answer that question, but he says a lot more instead as well. So when someone goes extra, says more than they were asked, that's a story that's important for them to tell. So let's just look at him answering the question directly. First of all, did she tell you what happened to the TV? No, is his first word. Hallmark of an honest response. She kind of asked me to look at the TV as if, she didn't know. So did she tell you what happened to the TV? No, she asked me to find out, is what he's saying there. And at the very end of the question, but she was asking me, i.e. she was asking me what was up with the TV. So Wendi did not tell me what was up with the TV. But he adds a lot more in there. And what that is I looked around. It was impossible to me. Impossible the kids would have done it. So what he's wanting us to know, what his agenda is the kids didn't do this. And he wants to make sure that comes across. I didn't know any better at the time what had happened, though. But now he's telling us it looked like a human being between 5'5" and 6 foot had stood in front of it and hit it. That's what he wants us to know. This human being between 5'5" and 6 foot had stood in front of the TV and hit it. Know anyone that's between 5'5" and 6 foot that would have access to that TV to hit it? That's what I think Jeff's hidden agenda is here. He really believes it wasn't the kids that smashed the TV, it was someone else. And then, okay, so it was like a spider mark, like a round impact with spider webs. He says exactly. And then he goes on to talk about it some more to describe the damage. The image, the pixels are distorted. Most people have probably seen this, and it wasn't completely shattered. You could see what was going on in the television, but it's not a TV anybody would normally watch. So from Jeffrey there, very descriptive about the damage to the TV. He remembers this in a lot of detail. It was an impact that caused it, spiders' webs going all around, but he does go extra in that question about what caused it, and he does say that he thinks it wasn't the kids, it was someone, well, what shall we say, someone roughly about Wendy's height is what I think he is saying. Okay, let's listen to Wendi describing the same situation.
Did you have an appointment at your residence on Aqua Ridge?
I did.
What was the nature of that appointment?
I had an appointment with the Geek Squad. There were some vertical lines on the TV. I didn't know if maybe one of my kids had tapped it or touched it, but it wasn't working. And so I had an appointment, and they were scheduled to come sometime between 8 and 12.
And was that the TV that was the same TV that your brother joked he got you as a divorce present because
It was
cheaper than hiring a hitman?
Yes.
Okay. And on the morning of the murder, did your mom text you about the TV repair guy being on the way or coming to your house?
She did. I didn't buy the TV, and the TV had an insurance policy that came with the Geek Squad help. So I think they reached out to her first, and then she let me know that they were coming.
Right, so let's look at the way that Wendi talks about this broken TV in her day 2 testimony. On the morning of the murder, she's asked, did you have an appointment at your residence on Aqua Ridge? And she says, I did. Very short, sharp answer. Lightly truthful, I did. You'll notice there, 2 words is all it takes for her to answer the question. She doesn't feel the need to go extra and say anything more. She's then asked, what was the nature of that appointment? And here comes her answer. What was the nature of that appointment? I had an appointment with the Geek Squad. That's the nature of the appointment. I had an appointment with the Geek Squad. And then she has to go in to explain what was wrong with the TV. Now, she wasn't asked what was wrong with the TV. There were some vertical lines on the TV. Now, her lines are vertical, whereas we had the spider's web from Jeffrey. I didn't know if maybe one of my kids had tapped it or touched it. Now, she was not asked, who broke your TV? She was only asked what was the nature of the appointment, but she's gone into all this detail, setting up all this story. And notice she doesn't say, one of my kids must have smashed it. It's, I don't know if maybe, really vague, so I don't think this happened. I don't know, or maybe one of my kids had tapped it. Would tapping a TV cause? No, it wouldn't cause any damage. Or touched it. Neither would touching it. So this is not a believable way of describing it. This is all a little bit downplaying it all and softening it all. But it wasn't working. And so this is an explanation here. The and so signifies you're getting an explanation, not a simple answer to the question. And so I had an appointment and they were scheduled to come sometime between 8 and 12. Now, she was asked, what was the nature of your appointment? That was the question, but she says it was an appointment with the Geek Squad. Then she goes into the backstory as to why there was an appointment on the Geek Squad that particular morning. Vertical lines on the TV. I don't know if one of my kids had tapped it or touched it. It wasn't working. And so I had an appointment. What was the nature of your appointment? I had an appointment. They were scheduled to come sometime between 8 and 12. Very important to Wendi's alibi, if you like, that she was due to be in the house at 8 and 12, so she could have nothing at all to do with this murder. Or maybe it's to give her some deniability that, she was always going to be there between 8 and 12 and someone would be able to see her. Therefore, again, I had nothing at all to do with this. And that's why she's crowbarred that into a question that has nothing about it. What was the nature of your appointment? It would have been really easy to say sharply, a guy was coming to look at my broken TV, but man, does she go extra with talking about the backstory of how the TV got broken, because she thinks that's really important to explain. And also the fact that this appointment was scheduled between 8 and 12. Therefore, I was always going to be in the house between 8 and 12 the morning that Dan Markel was murdered. Important for her to say her hidden agenda is coming across there. She's then asked, and then the morning of the murder, did your mom text you about the TV repair guy being on the way or coming to your house? Wendi says she did. That would be a full, direct answer to the question. Did your mom text you about the TV repair guy being on the way? She did. And then she goes extra again and explains why her mum called. She wasn't asked to explain why mum called. She was just asked to say, did she? But she feels the need to explain why her mom was calling. I didn't buy the TV, and the TV had an insurance policy that came with the Geek Squad help. So I think they reached out to her first, and then she let me know that they were coming. So once more, we get an explanation. Wendi is using this broken TV to do all sorts of explaining why she was in the house that morning, why her mom called her that morning, which could be suspicious given what Donna is accused of, and also why the TV was broken. This explanation about why the TV person was needed. She's going so extra because, look, did your mom call you on that morning? She could have just said yes, but she went into this really long story. So of the two stories, I'm going, Wendy's using it as a springboard to go other places, to get across the things that she thinks are important, that she really wants to have us hear. Why she was always going to be in the house that morning, why her mom called her that morning. She's not talking about the TV at all. She's talking about herself and things she thinks insulates herself from any harm. But there's one other big difference between how Wendi spoke about the TV and Jeff spoke about the TV. It's in this part that Jeff said here. See if you can spot it.
And it wasn't completely shattered. You could sort of see what was going on the television, but it's not a TV anybody would normally watch.
Jeff talks about the TV for the TV's sake. It's not a TV anybody would normally watch. To him, it's a real TV. The purpose of the TV to Jeff is to watch television programs on. And this one, you could watch television programs on, but it's not a TV anybody would normally watch. How did Wendi talk about the TV? It wasn't a facilitator for watching TV programs. It was a facilitator to tell all the stories that she felt it was important to tell. Today in court, we saw the actual text messages Wendi Adelson sent and received on the morning Dan Markel was murdered, including texts between Wendi and Dan themselves. On the surface, those look like ordinary exchanges between divorced parents, but when you slow them down, the tone changes. Dan's messages show warmth and cooperation. Wendi's are colder, more formal and less human, and I'll show you how you can detect that by looking at the words. And there's one line that Wendi uses, see you at 4:30. Just a throwaway phrase, unless she already knows that she wouldn't see him at 4:30. This is a quick look at day 4 of the Donna Adelson trial. Now, I'm doing these daily episodes that focus only on the words used in court. Each week, I'm going to release a deeper statement investigation into the most significant testimony that we've seen. If you're new here, this isn't like other trial coverage. There's no commentary, there's no legal drama, no legal issues, just the language, because it's in the words that we often find the cracks. Let's dive into the text messages which were received from Wendi on the day of the murder. But first of all, one that happened slightly earlier. Now, this happened on a time where it was said that it would be really convenient if you were planning on murdering Dan and you'd made a trip to Tallahassee, scoped it out, didn't do it that day, and you needed another date to do it. I think the insinuation is that this text sent by Wendi to Dan would be really convenient to anyone organising a hitman. Wendi says, are you in Tallahassee June 14th to 18th? I just want to know if I can have the kiddos on the 16th. Thanks. And Dan replies, yes, you can. That would all be very convenient. How could we tell there's something up with that message? If there is something up with that message, well, if you're a regular here, you'll know all about looking out for the word just. Are you in Tallahassee June 14th to 18th? I just want to know if I can have the kiddos. Now, that word just appears in Deception so often. And what it's doing here, I think, is it's focusing attention. I just want to know this. I don't want to know anything else. I don't have any other reason for asking. Please don't question. I'm very casual. The just here is a bit of casual. I just want to know. So often when we say just, there's a lot more going on. Think about when you send someone a text saying, I just want to know if you received my last text. You don't just want to know that. Actually, you want to get a bloody reply from them. Just can be so deceptive. And here, I think it is to focus it down. It's very innocent. It's just a little inquiry, but it could signal that there is a lot more going on. That use of just, that minimizing use of just, often signals, please look over here while the big bad thing's happening over there. Let's go to the morning then of Dan Markel's murder. And the first thing that we saw on Wendi's phone was a text message from Donna. By the way, Donna is the person on trial, although you would think that sometimes Wendi is the person on trial from the amount of focus that is put on her. Why would that be? Anyway, Donna texts Wendi on the morning of the murder at 8:11 a.m. Best Buy just called me, but I told them to confirm with you. They are on their way over now to help you with the TV sets in your living room. Now, we had this when we looked at Wendi's testimony. So the over-explaining about this repairman. Remember, this repairman, it's alleged, is some cover, or could be some sort of cover, to give Wendi an alibi and eyes on her at the time the murder was happening. And Donna seems to over-explain this here. Best Buy just called. They're on their way now. right? Because Wendi knew why Best Buy were coming, because they were coming to fix the TV. But Donna over-explains here. Best Buy just called me. I told them to confirm with you. They are on their way over now to help you with the TV sets in your living room. I mean, that is trying too hard for my money. That is saying there is something way more going on. Just think about how your mom would text you to say that sort of thing. They're on the way now. No, they're on the way now to help you with the TV sets in your living room. Plural of sets, by the way. If anyone has any theories as to why it was TV sets when it was just one TV that needed dealing with, then do let me know. Remember, it is the extra that always will show what is important for someone to say, and then ask yourself, why is it important that they say that? This bit now about the needing help with the TV sets wasn't needed to be said. It's extra and therefore can be revealing. Then we've got something really interesting where Wendi texts Charlie, "This is so sweet," at 8:20 a.m. It was deleted from Wendy's phone that day. What is so sweet? Well, I don't know what's so sweet. We don't know the message that Charlie was sent, but it's this is so sweet. This is something ongoing, something that's present and there at the time. If someone sent a funny meme or a cute picture of a dog or a child or something, that is so sweet would be what you would expect. This is so sweet suggests something ongoing. Think about it. If you were sitting with someone having a romantic meal, you might say, "This is so sweet," because it's an ongoing situation. So for some reason, Wendi seems to be texting Charlie about an ongoing situation and saying, "This right now in the present time is so sweet." What could that be on the morning that Dan Markel was being murdered? At some point in the morning, Dan Markel called Wendi and left a voicemail message. We did hear the voicemail message in court today. The audio quality wasn't that good. Luckily, they gave us the wording in it as well. So I will read out Dan's voicemail for Wendi. "Hey Wendi, it's Danny. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock on Friday. Just wanted to let you know I was hoping to pick the boys up early this afternoon and take them swimming and then have them ready for you around 4:30 or 5 if you can pick them up from me, either at Trousdale or at the house. So let me know if that's okay with you. And also, I'd love to chat with you about Ben's situation at school and the birthday stuff and all that. I'm going to be at the gym probably between 9:15 and 10:30. But happy to chat or meet with you. Maybe we could go for a walk at school or something like that. Let me know. Okay, bye." That's the voicemail. Did you spot what he did as well? He did the exact same thing as Wendi and he used a just. Just wanted to let you know I was hoping to pick the boys up early this afternoon and take them swimming. Just wanted to let you know. Now, what did I say about that word just? I said about that word just, it tries to focus things on just one little thing in particular, just make things seem small and no big deal. This one's all about casuality. And you'll know here the difference between Dan and what Wendi did is Wendi said just, and I think the real reason for texting was hidden. It wasn't mentioned. Dan does just wanted to let you know I was hoping to pick the boys up. And then he talks also about having a chat. This is obviously something a bit more difficult because it's a chat about school and the birthday. And he's offering to meet up and have this chat, something obviously a bit bigger than just when can I pick the kids up. So his just was minimizing something when there was something bigger going on. But he's got the big thing out in the open as well. And I want to draw your attention to something else that Dan said in that voicemail. He says, "Happy to chat or meet with you. Maybe we can go for a walk at school or something. Maybe we can go for a walk at school or something." It's that word "we." That shows he feels unity with Wendi. That doesn't mean romantic unity, but that shows that he sees himself as part of a team with Wendi, probably around parenting the kids. He wants to work with Wendi. That's what's revealed by his use of the word "we." He doesn't see himself separate from Wendi. He wants them to come together and unite. Maybe we can go for a walk at school or something. You can see the warmth coming up there with happy to chat or meet with you. Maybe we can go for a walk at school or something like that. So he's very, very happy, much warmer than what we will see from Wendi, but there's that pronoun "we" that suggests some jointness in there. So Wendi texts Dan back and she says, "Repairman at my house right now. I am picking the boys up at 3 p.m, so your swim idea is a no-go today." And now this is where it all seems like a little bit like divorced parents spatting and fighting over territory and so on. Dan texts Wendi and says, "My day ends at 4:30 under our schedule." Did you see it? My day ends at 4:30 under our schedule. He's used a joint pronoun again. He's feeling this unitedness there. He's trying to parent within a framework that they have both agreed, and he's not using it in a manipulative way. What he is saying is, this is what we've agreed. We're part of this team that are parenting the boys together. This is our schedule. Wendi will not use any joint pronouns. It's all part pronouns. It's all personal pronouns, first and second party pronouns that she uses. Dan twice in the space of a very short time has used joint pronouns. So that shows certainly there's some warmth in the guy, but also he just sees themselves as part of a team. So my day ends at 4:30, says Dan, under our schedule. He continues, and you had them until 5 last week. Wendi says, because you needed to food shop. So you needed to food shop. So it's all there. No joint pronouns there or any sense of unison at all from Wendi in her communications. Dan says, you weren't making them available until 5. And Wendi says, well, if it was 4:30 last Friday, you should have told me that. So we've just got this spat going on again. Why tell me now, is what she said. And Dan says to Wendi, because I was being nice. Now that was at 9:20. That text from Dan to Wendi, because I was being nice, was actually sent to Wendi while she was on an 18-minute phone call to Charlie. We've heard Wendi talk about this 18-minute phone call to Charlie and says that she phoned to ask him the price of the TV because she didn't know whether it was worth getting it repaired or getting a new one. I'm not sure what else they spoke about in those 18 minutes. Wendy's never said. That is what she says the phone call was about. It was about, but it's 18 minutes long. In the middle of that 18 minutes long phone call came Dan's text, because I was being nice. And Wendi replies to Dan. And the message that she sent Dan is, nice was fun while it lasted. See you at 4:30 p.m. today at my house then. Nice was fun while it lasted. While it lasted. It's a very final phrase, isn't it? A very, very final phrase. Now, this is not proof that Wendi was involved in the murder and she made it happen or anything like that. I'm just pointing out that in this message, she has used a very final phrase. Nice was fun while it lasted. Could have been used by any divorced couple. We had fun once upon a time, but it's a very, very final phrase. And then we have, see you at 4:30 p.m. today at my house then. See you. Very much the focus on the fact that they will have this interaction. She will see him then. This has all come after she spoke to Charlie. This relenting, saying that I'm not going to be picking up the kids at 3. Look, you can have them. I'll see you at 4:30 p.m. today at my house then. You'll notice the kids have disappeared from all of this message from Wendi. This is just about her seeing Dan. Not see you all or bring the kids at 4:30 to my house today then. Just see you. Again, is this that extra information, to this appearance of innocence that's needed? I'll see you at 4:30. Look, I couldn't have had anything to do with this. I sent him a text saying I expect to see you at 4:30. Something else really, really concerns me about that message. See you at 4:30 today at my house is what she says. She is insisting that Dan brings the kids to her house. And yet when Dan sent his message, he said, if you can pick them up from me either at Trousdale or at the house, i.e. come to my house, is what he's saying there. And for some reason, Wendi is not going to that house. Does she know that house is not going to be available for picking the kids up? I don't know. That's just supposition. But in her head, she's decided that the meeting will take place at her house and definitely not at Dan's house. And there is one more thing that I have spotted. It's something missing from the entire conversation. Can you remember what it is? Something really, really serious was brought up that Wendi has not mentioned once in this entire conversation. Did you spot what it was? It was this part here. I'd love to chat with you about Ben's situation for school and birthday stuff and all that. I'm going to be at the gym probably between 9:15 and 10:30, but happy to chat or meet with you. Maybe we can go for a walk at school or something like that. Let me know. So a whole big bit of Dan's voicemail dealt with wanting to talk about this and wanting to talk about this today, wanting to talk about this as a couple. And Wendi skipped all of that. She didn't acknowledge it. She didn't set a time for doing that. Now, that was going to be a very big and difficult conversation, one that she did not have to have with Dan after he was murdered, and she decided that she wasn't going to talk about that with Dan on the morning he was murdered. I wonder why that is. Sometimes it's the things that are missing that are the biggest giveaways. Today in court, we heard a telling wiretapped phone call from Charlie Adelson. Undercover FBI had been contacting his mother, Donna Adelson, and they had been pretending to be blackmailing her. So Charlie picks up the phone to the undercover agent, and Charlie might think that he's being smart and he's being cagey, but his words give him away.
I don't know Taco. You don't know Taco? I never know Katie and Tuco. They've been taken care of since family problem been taken care of up north. I don't know. I was
It's not just what he says, it's how he says it. This is a quick look at day 5 of the Donna Adelson trial. These daily episodes focus strictly on what's said in court, the words that are used. No legal drama, no courtroom gossip, just the language said in evidence and on the witness stand. And then each week during the trial, I'll release a deeper statement analysis investigation into the most revealing language in the case. Before we go to day 5 and the wiretaps, thank you so much for all the comments that you're leaving under these videos. I love reading them all. So many of them, it's hard to keep up, but here's a couple of my favourite ones. This is Betty saying, "This case is a web of lies from what I've seen and heard so far." Oh yes it is, Betty. Lots of lying going on in court. Thank you for confirming some of my thoughts about the wild stories and highlighting others. It's a pleasure, Betty. Always go with your gut. You've had these thoughts about what's being said, and I can show you why you're right to have those thoughts through looking at the language that is being used in court. And then here we have Spire saying, "Awesome content and analysis. Thank you so much, Spire. You need to contact the authorities in Florida." I think they've got this one in the bag, to be honest with you. I think they've got this. They don't need my help. But what a great comment. I bet Emily D. Baker isn't getting comments like that. Anyway, let's go on to what happened in court today. Lots of stuff, lots and lots of wiretaps. Charlie on the phone to Donna, on the phone to his girlfriend Katie, being eavesdropped, to having meetings with people and so on. All really interesting, not great from analysing people's words, because most of the time in these wiretaps, the very innocent Adelson family were talking in code for some reason on lots of these calls, so hard to get a steer on that. But we do have something here. Like I said, the FBI undercover have contacted Donna, pretending to be trying to blackmail her, hoping that they'll shake up the Adelson family a little bit and get something out of them through these wiretaps. And at some point, Charlie decides to call the undercover FBI. He thinks they're trying to blackmail Donna, but he wants to find out what's going on. And this is that phone call.
Hello? Hola, Lina. Hello? Lina, who is this? Who's this? Someone's been calling my family and trying to figure out who this is. In reference to what, ma'am? Someone by the name of Sammy call? Yeah, that's me, ma'am. Alright, what's going on? Well, what's going on, my brother Taco. Okay, my brother Taco has not been taken care of. His family's not been taken care of. I talked to thank this Taco. Why are you calling me? Who are you? I gave the number to a lady. I don't know Taco. You don't know Taco? I never know Katie and Tuco. They've been taken care of since family problem been taken care of up north. I don't know. You don't? Well, this is going away, my friend. Because let me tell you something. I was a driver with Taco, and he told me the whole story. He told me nobody was taking care of him, nobody was taking care of his family. The family was taking care of Katie and Tuco, and nothing's been taken care of with Taco. So we know what's going on. And Taco needs to be taken care of, do the right thing. The lady already heard the paperwork, she knows what I'm talking about. We know Katie, we know Tuco, we know they've been taken care of. Let me look at it. No more fucking around, man. No more fucking around. This ain't going away. You guys need to do the right thing for Taco. That's my brother, man. That's my brother, and he needs to be taken care of. His family needs to be taken care of, just like Katie and Tuco have been taken care of. I've never met these people, but let me call you back, okay? That's bullshit, man. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You know this lady. I don't know your relationship with this lady, but we know what the fuck is going on. The thing about that, like, take care of that, just like you take care of Katie and Tuka, man.
Right, now there's two games going on here. Obviously, there's the game going on with the FBI guy who's an agent, law enforcement, but pretending to be a blackmailer, an extortionist. And then there's Charlie. Now, Charlie's got a couple of games going on here as well because he doesn't know who's calling. If this is a genuine blackmail attempt, he's probably thinking, I could work with this person and make it all go away. If this is, the FBI, which he suspects it might be, then he's got to act like nothing is going on at all. So it's in his interest to act like an innocent person concerned about what's been raised with his mum. Let's go through the call. Charlie says hello, and the FBI guy says hola. Charlie says hello. The FBI guy says something indistinct, and Charlie says, who is this? The FBI guy says, who is this? And Charlie says, someone's been calling my family. I'm trying to figure out who this is. Tell number one, his very first sentence of any substance in this call, Charlie says what his game is. I'm trying to figure out who this is. Now, if this was a blackmail attempt or if this was a sort of covert blackmail attempt, you would really be wanting to know, what is it you want? Instead, he gives the game away by saying, I'm trying to figure out who this is. He plays all his cards on the table straight away. Instead of saying, I'm calling to see what you want, he says, I'm trying to figure out who this is. The first thing we say is always, often the most important thing that we say, and that's what we've got here. We've got him saying, I'm trying to figure out who this is. The FBI guy says, in reference to what, man? Charlie says, someone by the name of Sammy called. And the FBI guy says, yeah, that's me. And Charlie says, all right, what's going on? What's going on? Again, he's playing all his cards here. He's not in control. He's on a fact-finding mission. I'm trying to figure out who this is and what's going on. If you thought your family were being blackmailed, you would probably be telling this person, go away, we'll call law enforcement. That never enters Charlie or Donna's mind. You might have noticed calling law enforcement about this blackmail attempt. No, they're not going to do that for some reason. But instead, I'm not saying they're not legitimate questions. They're questions you could ask someone in this situation. But the way he's doing them, he's showing exactly what is on his mind. And what's going on is about a current event. It's not what's happening. It's not what do you want. It's what's going on. He's super focused and super stressed by this current event. So then the answer comes to him, well, what's going on is my brother Tato, okay? My brother Tato has not been taken care of. His family has not been taken care of. I talked to, well, why are you calling me? Who are you? I gave the number to a lady. Now, normally I would say someone not answering the question is a lie and it's evasive. In this case, Charlie doesn't answer the question. He says, I don't know Tato, which is legitimate when he doesn't want to give away his name. You know, he's in a bit of a bind and a bit of a situation here. So I'm not going to call him a liar for not saying his name. But man, that answer is, I don't know Tato. He's ahead of himself here because this guy hasn't said to him, you know Tato, you're involved with Tato. He doesn't even say you should be looking after Tato. He's just stating some facts at the moment. My brother Tato has not been taken care of. His family has not been taken care of. He hasn't yet got to the point of, and you guys should be taking care of him. And yet Charlie goes in too fast with, I don't know Tato. Now, by the way, you'll notice that Charlie, although his girlfriend organised the hit, he had never met the two hitmen, Tato and Tuco. So it's very easy for him to give a truthful statement of, I don't know this person, because he doesn't know this person. But that's not what the allegation is. The allegation is you don't know the person. The allegation is you haven't looked after this person. So the FBI guy says, you don't know Tato? Charlie says, I don't. And then he drops the bomb. The FBI guy says, you know Katie and Tuto, they've been taken care of since the family problem has been taken care of up north. Now, this is at the point where Charlie should have said, I don't know Tato, because now it's very clear what is going on. You know Katie and Tuto, they've been taken care of since the family problems have been taken care of up north. That's the murder of Dan Markel. And Charlie, oh boy, does that get Charlie, because he realises exactly what is going on here. And it's not in the transcript in front of you, but you can hear it if you just rewind back to listen to it. The stutter in Charlie. There's a pause, and then he says, I don't know who you are, which is the stress which must just hit him here with this person knows the entire story about who commissioned the killing of Dan Markel, who did the killing of Dan Markel, and Charlie, my link to it. The stress is huge, and he stutters badly. He says, I don't know who you are. And notice, again, he doesn't say, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know about the family problem up north that's been taken care of. He doesn't say, I don't know Katie and Tuto at all. He says, I don't know who you are. It's a really, really bad denial. There is no, what the hell are you talking about here? It's a very, I don't know who you are. The FBI guy says, you don't? Charlie says, no. And the FBI guy says, well, this isn't going away, my friend, because let me tell you something. I was at Broward with Tato, and he told me the whole story. He told me nobody has taken care of him. Nobody has taken care of his family. The family was taking care of Katie and Tuto, but nothing had been taken care of with Tato. So we know what's going on, and Tato needs to be taken care of. Do the right thing. The lady already has the paperwork. She knows what I'm talking about. We know Katie, we know Tuto, we know they're being taken care of. And Charlie says, all right, let me look into things. So for all that he wants to be the big tough guy, taking on potentially blackmailers, potentially hoodwinking the FBI into thinking there's nothing going on, he says, all right, let me look into things. An implicit admission, because he has not denied the events up north that needed to be taken care of. He's not denied knowing Tuto and knowing Katie. He says, all right, let me look into things, which is as good as an admission that he can look into things as possible. Imagine you phone someone up and you haven't a clue what they're talking about. Would you say, let me look into things? No, you only say that if you know what they're talking about, even if you've only got a small grasp of what they're talking about. It's an admission right there and then. In almost everything Charlie says in this call to the FBI, he's admitting he knows more than he's saying. The FBI continues with no more effing around. This ain't going to go away. Tato, you guys need to do the right thing for Tato. That's my brother, man. That's my brother. And he needs to be taken care of. His family needs to be taken care of, just like Katie and Tato have been taken care of. And Charlie says, all right, I never have met these people, but let me call you back, okay? And again, we've got a very, very telling phrase here. It's not, I don't know these people. It's not, I don't know anything about the events up north either, by the way. It's, I have never met these people, is what he says. A blatant lie, since one of them is his girlfriend, so God knows what you're thinking there, Charlie. Again, not like the FBI could check that one out if you suspect it's the FBI, but I have never met these people. Again, I think that's that deniability that the Adelsons got themselves by commissioning someone to commission people who they'd never met to go and do the hit. So the denials that are in there from Charlie are not, I don't know what this problem is up north. The denials is, I don't know these people. I don't know the person that's calling me, and I have never met these people. The FBI guy calls him out on that. That's bullshit, man. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You know this lady. I know your relationship with this lady, but we know what the F is going on. Charlie says something indistinct, and then the caller says, it ain't going to go away. Take care of Tato just like you take care of Katie and Tuto, man. And Charlie says, let me call you back, which is the way we would end all calls with people that we're completely mystified by, isn't it? Let me call you back. Charlie doesn't say very much during that call. He wants to be cool. He wants to be smart. He wants to be cagey. He's on an information gathering exercise. And with the things that he says, he gives the game away that he was involved in the murder of Dan Markel. Today in court, we heard Donna Adelson reading a text message from her daughter, Wendi, which came after Charlie was jailed for the murder of Dan Markel.
Dear Mom, I know you are upset by the verdict, but the anger directed at me is not justified. I'm not responsible in any way for Charlie's situation. I am not guilty because I did not do anything wrong, and I was not involved in any way with Danny's death. So she was.
I didn't say she was. It's not a denial and it's not support. It's somewhere in between, and it's that space in between where language gets interesting. This is a quick look at day 6 of the Donna Adelson trial. I'll be doing these short breakdowns every day court is in session, focused only on what people are saying and how they say it. If you're new here, this is different from trial coverage you'll get anywhere else. I'm not summarising the headlines or the main moves of the day, looking at the legal arguments or analysing facial expressions. This is statement investigation. It's a method that looks at the exact words used by people involved, because that's where deception hides. intention leaks, and that's where the truth comes out. Before we go on to look at this text message, which, wow, there is so much in that. Thank you so much for your comments. I found so many of them really interesting to read. It's great to know we're spending time together on this trial. Cindy says, "This is great. I'm enjoying my coffee and your words of wisdom from North Arkansas." Cindy, I'm a big coffee fan myself, so that fills me with delight to think that you're enjoying a coffee and some statement investigation. One here from Music Man, "Just stumbled across your channel." I'm sure he means stumbled, but that is an invention of a great word, stumbled. And to say I have to say I was glued to the set with your riveting analysis. Thank you. Great job picking up all those little clues. You should work with the prosecution. I'd be more than happy to, although I do hear the defence pays better. Nurturing says, "Brilliant, thank you. Just subscribed." You got the message. Subscribe to make sure that you get these episodes. We have one here from Words who says, "Maybe Wendi just has a thing for TV repair guys." Just, I think, has been people's biggest learning from these daily breakdowns. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and look through the archives, because you will learn why the word just can indicate a big deal of deception. Such a little word hides such a big thing. And then we have one here from Kay who says, "Wendi is allergic to a simple yes or no." I get what you're saying, Wendi, but look at the deep dive episode when it comes out, because we will see Wendi is very good at yes or no when it suits her, and then allergic at other times. So let's go on to today's evidence. And we had the FBI guy up again playing all the wiretaps. This one comes at some point after Charlie has been jailed, and it's Donna. And at this excerpt we're going to listen to, she is reading a text message that she's received from Wendi, and also giving us some of her commentary to it as well. So let's have a listen, and then we'll break down the words that are used both by Wendi in the text and by Donna in her commentary.
So she said this morning, "I thought she'd be racing over here last night. Dear Mom, I know you are upset by the verdict, but the anger directed at me is not justified. I don't know how much anger there is. Really don't. I'm not responsible in any way for Charlie's situation. I am not guilty because I did not do anything wrong, and I was not involved in any way with Danny's death, which she was. When I was interviewed by the police and testified in court, I told the truth, as I was required to do. I cannot control how the prosecutor used my statement for Charlie's trial. Again, I didn't say that. Also, as you know, my lawyer has advised me not to talk to my family or anyone else about this case. No, about the case, which is true, we've never done it. I followed his advice despite your disagreements with this guidance. Please do not text me about this case anymore. Not about the case, is it? Not what I said. About her brother. And then one, how are you, Wendi? How's my sister holding up? Check. If you have anything further to say about the case, please go through our lawyers. Right now, I have to be singularly focused on taking care of the boys during this difficult time. So I wrote back, okay, we have no desire to speak with you about the case. I guess Dad and I are just shocked that you didn't think of coming to see us or even calling us. We are your parents. We are and have always been there for you and the boys. None of what we wrote matters about the case. That's over. I just want you to know how many times Charlie's asking about you. Not only do you not ask about us, but not one question about Charlie, right? We will need to give you some information shortly, and we need some business assistance. Please let us know if you can be of any help.
Right, I believe that the words there reveal a lot about Wendi and what's going on with Wendi, and also a lot about the personality of Donna Adelson. So if I don't spot something you do spot, do let me know in the comments. Let's see what we can get at as we analyze the words there. So we're going to assume that that Donna was faithfully reading Wendi's text there, which I think she was. So the text goes, "Dear Mom, I know you are upset by the verdict, but the anger directed at me is not justified." Donna then gives some commentary, which she does a lot of, and this one is indiscernible. I don't know how much anger, but we don't. But let's look at Wendi's words. "Dear Mom, I know you are upset by the verdict." That's interesting. Upset by the verdict. Not upset that Charlie was the guy who ordered the hit on your ex-son-in-law. Just upset by the verdict. This is how this family talks. I think Wendi is being very careful with what she says here in these texts, but sometimes, even when you're being careful, things will leak out. And therefore, in this family, the conversation is not upset that Charlie turned out to have ordered a hit, but and remember the trial? There was a lot of evidence there to say Charlie was not a good guy, but you are upset by the verdict. That just shows how the Adelsons look at this case. And then we have this commentary from Donna. I don't know how much anger. Donna is not happy. This is not a warm reading of a text whatsoever. The audience here, is important for Donna to get some messages across to them, and that is Donna image managing and going, hey, I wasn't upset, I wasn't angry. The text continues, I'm not responsible in any way for Charlie's situation. I am not guilty because I did not do anything wrong and I was not involved in any way with Danny's death. And then Donna says, I didn't say she was. So let's have a look at all of those. I am not guilty because I did not do anything wrong. I'm not guilty would be enough. You don't have to tell us why you're not guilty. You're not guilty if you didn't do anything at all. That would be not guilty. I did not do anything wrong. It's not, I'm not guilty. It's not, I've got nothing to do with this. She's qualifying the guilt. I'm not guilty because I did not do anything wrong. It's not just plain and simply, I'm not guilty. I'm not involved in this. It's, I'm not guilty because I did not do anything wrong. And what does anything wrong mean? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what does that mean? Why does she not just say it simply and plainly? I'm not guilty, but has to tell us what makes her not guilty. I did not do anything wrong. And I was not involved in any way with Danny's death. Any way is extra. She could say, I was not involved with Danny's death, and it would mean the exact same thing as I was not involved in any way with Danny's death. So she's putting that anyway as some sort of qualifier or some sort of persuasive word there to say, not just, I didn't do it, I really didn't do it, which is the exact same as not doing it. But she's added this in any way in. Now, this comes after Charlie was jailed, and at Charlie's trial, a lot of wiretaps were played. This is a new wiretap. So was Wendi aware that any communications between herself and her parents could be subject to wiretaps, just like this is? Is that why she's talking in this overly persuasive way, that she doesn't feel she can just say, I wasn't involved, but she has to really, really ramp it up with, I did not do anything wrong, and I was not involved in any way with Danny's death. And then we have Donna's response. I didn't say she was. Which means that Donna's open to being able to have said the opposite. I did say she was. Or I think she was, but I didn't say it out loud. I didn't say she was. Donna's immediate knee-jerk response in reading that is, of course she's not involved. She's innocent. Wendi had nothing to do with this. I know that. That's not what Donna says. It's not backing up the denial. It's saying, I didn't say she was. It's very, very different from, of course she's innocent. She's innocent. No, it's none of that. It's just, I didn't say out loud that she was involved. And remember, there's an audience here as well. It continues, when I was interviewed by the police and testified in court, I told the truth as I was required to do. I cannot control how the prosecutor used my statement for Charlie's trial. Now we have Donna's commentary again at the end. Again, I didn't say that. So I told the truth. When I was interviewed by the police and testified in court, I told the truth. Again, when the police are talking to you, why would you lie? When you testify in court, why would you lie? Why do you have to point out that you told the truth? Maybe it's because Wendi thinks that someone's listening in on this and thinks it's important to say I told the truth in case there's any thoughts that she lied. Maybe it's because Mom here was pressuring her not to tell the truth. Mom was saying, Wendi, you need to lie to get your brother Charlie out of trouble here. But Wendi is saying, I told the truth as I was required to do. So here again is Wendi kind of saying in her language, if I wasn't required to tell the truth, then maybe there would have been, some way I could have not told the truth. But the reason that I told the truth was because I was required to tell the truth, not because getting up and telling the truth was the most natural thing in the world to me. Lots in there from Wendi. I don't like Wendi. I do not like this. And then look at Donna's commentary. Again, I didn't say that. Now, what's going on here is in Wendi's text, she's not accusing Donna of saying these things. What Wendi is doing is stating her point of view, and what Donna's doing is taking offence at that and insinuating that Wendi is saying that Donna has said all these things about her, but Donna is denying things. She's arguing with points that aren't made. She's taking it personally. She's turning everything here into being about her. Again, I didn't say that. Well, Wendi doesn't say you said that. And also, what didn't you say? When I was interviewed, I told the truth as I was required to do. I didn't say that. Well, again, why would you not say that, your daughter told the truth? Because that would be a very natural thing to say. Also, as you know, and then Donna adds the commentary, I do know, which doesn't sound warm at all. My lawyer has advised me not to talk to my family or anyone else about the case. And we have the commentary there, I do know, from Donna, which sounds anything but warm. And then Donna goes on to say, look, this is true. We've never talked about the case. About that case, this, which is true, we've never done it. It's got that word never in there, which often applies to deception. Have they never done it? Never? Does she really mean never? Not at any time have they talked about the case? I don't think that's true for a reason. Maybe there's a time frame where they've never done it, but why is she using that really vague term, we've never done it? It continues with some of Wendi's words. I followed this advice despite your disagreements with his guidance. Please do not text me about this case anymore. And then Donna commentaries, it's not about the case, is it? Not what I said. That's her brother. That's he wants. How are you, Wendi? How's my sister holding up? Not what I said. Again, Donna is just bringing this all back to herself and not thinking, what is Wendi saying? She's not really reading and understanding what Wendi is saying. Now, maybe lots of you wouldn't want to read and understand what Wendi is saying, but Donna is turning this into an attack on herself. There seems to be something in her personality that anyone who says something that's not quite in alignment with what she thinks or wants or hopes is an attack on herself. Wendi says, if you have anything further to say about the case, please go through our lawyers. Right now, I have to be singularly focused on taking care of our boys during this difficult time. Now, what does that sound like to you? Right now, I have to be singularly focused on taking care of our boys during this difficult time. Sounds to me like a press release, like a press statement. I really think this is an indication that Wendi knows that these communications could be intercepted, could be read out loud. And so she's taking time to do some image management and say, I'm stepping away from the family because I'm a good person, focused on taking care of the boys during this difficult time. It's almost like that, I will be taking some time away from the limelight during this difficult time. It's very much like a prepared statement there. I think Wendi very aware that these texts could be passed on to others or read by others, read by the FBI, appear in court, just like this one has. So Donna says, so I wrote back, and I think again she's reading the text and saying what was there. Okay, we have no desire to speak to you with you about the case. We have no desire to speak with you about the case, is what she says. She's talking for herself and Harvey, her husband there, I think. And we see this a lot. Donna, again, a lot of personality flaws are coming through in all of this. And here she's talking for two people here. She feels she can be the mouthpiece for the entire family. We have no desire to speak with you about the case. I guess Dad and I are just shocked that you didn't think of coming to see us or even calling us. So this concern for themselves again is coming through. Dad and I are shocked that you didn't think of coming to see us or even calling us. We are your parents and we have always been there for you. You will notice that Wendi has sent a message where she's seems to be a little bit upset, a little bit uptight, aware of some anger towards us. And Wendi's concern is only for herself and for Harvey as well. In all of this communication and the way Donna reads it out, there is no concern for Wendi from Donna expressed at all. Concern for Charlie? Concern for herself, big concern for Donna. Concern for Harvey, but no concern for Wendi. Interesting family dynamics. So my only concern is for you and the boys. None of what we wrote matters about this case. That's over. I just want you to know many times Charlie is asking about you. Not only do you not ask about us, but not one question about Charlie, right? So she's talking for we again. None of what we wrote matters about this case. And again, it's that's almost emotional blackmail. That you don't talk to us, you don't talk to about your brother. Man, what a horrible person you are, Wendi. We're all shocked by this. And then she finishes it off with, we will need to give you some information shortly, and we need some business assistance. Please let us know if we can be of any help. Please let us know if you can be of any help even. So This is like one of those ones where, you know, you get an email or a text message. Hi, how are you? What have you been up to? Done anything interesting lately? I need a babysitter. Or I need someone to go to the shops and get me something. Do you know what I mean? It reads like one of those. I'm going to pay some lip service and pretend to be interested in you. But actually, here's the ultimate want. We need to give you some information shortly. We need some business assistance. Please let us know if you can be of any help, which sounds very formal. We will need to give you some information. I wonder what that is. I think Donna's aware she has an audience in the room with her. So actually, this was a text message. So we will need to give you some information. I wonder what that was shortly. And we need some business assistance as well. Very non-specific. But ultimately, after getting a text message, and I don't care what you think of Wendi. Wendi is Donna's daughter, and she sent a bit of a heartfelt message, obviously very tense and very stressed with some demands. Donna does not say, yeah, we'll meet your demands or anything like that. Actually, what Donna does is, here's what you can do for me, Wendi. I think a great insight into who Donna is as a person, but don't forget the way Wendi was really qualifying some of those things. At the Donna Adelson trial this week, her daughter Wendi says she doesn't know anything.
Were you in any way involved in the plot to kill your ex-husband?
No.
Did you maybe know it was going to happen but not know the details?
I did not know it was going to happen, and I did not know any details.
And Wendi gives us a reason why the police might suspect her.
Or you were worried, I guess, in the police car on the way to be interviewed, that you might be considered a suspect.
Because I couldn't think of anything bad going on in his life other than the divorce. And frequently the ex-wife is a suspect.
Wendi's words don't add up. And then there's her brother, Robert. What he said about Donna's reaction to Dan Markel's murder, I don't think he realised he was revealing. In this episode, I'll show you exactly where the contradictions are and why both Wendi and Robert's testimony might say more than they intended. Welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If you're new to this, what I do here is different from anywhere else. Every time I strip away everything apart from the words that are said by the people at the centre of the story. Then I use my process of statement investigation to give you the key to seeing deception, where the truth is, and also what the motivations of the person talking might be. It's a process that I use with investigators, with corporate clients, and with the media to get a deep understanding of what is being said. So, Donna Adelson on trial in connection with the murder of her ex-son-in-law, Dan Markel. Now, I'm going to look here and breaking down two of the most important bits of testimony we got this week. That is her daughter, Wendi Adelson, ex-wife of Dan Markel, the murder victim, and also her son, Robert Adelson. I don't think Robert's spoken before at one of these trials, so what he has to say is especially interesting. But let's start with Wendi Adelson. And for both Wendi and Robert, I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things. Do they answer the question that they're being asked? Do they directly take on the question they're being asked? Or do they jump off the row a little bit? Do they go sideways? Do they dodge? Do they just not take on specifically what is being asked? That'll be instructive. Look for them going extra. That is when you're asked a question and you give a full answer to that question, and then you say something else. That indicates what is important for that person to say. It's such a priority for them. They feel the need to get it out without being asked about it. That indicates what's going on in their head. And let's just look for some signs of being honest from Wendi and from Robert. Are you ready? Let's dive into the courtroom and hear from Wendi Adelson.
When was the last time you spoke to your mother, Donna Adelson, as we sit here today?
November of 2023.
Okay. And so she hasn't given you any information or advice about how to testify in court, has
No,
she?
ma'am. No.
What about, you did offer testimony in November of 2023 as well, right, on a related case?
Yes.
Okay.
October.
And did your mom, when you spoke to her in November of 2023, offer you any advice or thoughts about how you should act or behave or what you should say in court?
Yes.
She did.
She did.
And what was that?
I can't tell you I remember exactly, but she was hoping I would be supportive of my brother.
Okay. And do you know what her thoughts were afterwards?
I do.
Okay. And what were they?
She was devastated.
She didn't feel you were supportive.
No.
Right, Wendi is asked, first of all, when was the last time you spoke to your mother, Donna Adelson, as we sit here today? And Wendi says November of 2023. It's a 3-word answer. It's a very short answer. It does take on the question, directly takes on the question. All those things point to this being truthful, that Wendi hasn't spoken to her mother since November of 2023. There's no storytelling, there's no persuasion. It deals directly with what has been asked. So I would say that's what the truth sounds like when it comes from Wendi. It's very direct, it's to the question, and it's very short. She's then asked, okay, so she hasn't given you any information or advice about how to testify in court. And Wendi says, no, ma'am, no. Now, again, that sounds very honest. It's a yes or no question. She says no. She says no twice. Now, normally I would say, are you trying too hard to make us believe that you mean no by repeating no? But actually, if you listen back, the prosecutor steps over her a little bit. So I think she's saying no for clarity there. So Wendi in truthful mode here. For whatever reason, maybe she's always in truthful mode. Maybe we'll see her deviate a little bit from this. But she seems to be in truthful mode. Short answers, directly answering the question. What about, did you offer testimony in November of 2023 as well, right, on a related case is the question. Yes, October, says Wendi. Again, yes to the question, very straightforward. She does say October instead of November. Maybe she's just trying to be really correct. She's then asked, and did your mom, when you spoke to her in November of 2023, offer you any advice or thoughts about how you should act or behave or what you should say in court? Wendi says, yes. It's a yes-no question. We might be expecting a little bit more, but Wendi's game is just to give the bare minimum here. And it really helps to give, if you're giving the bare minimum, for it to be truthful. Just say yes. So she does answer the question, but she's not going to be helpful and give the prosecutors any more to work with, even though she's played this game before. She's an attorney herself. She knows that she's going to be asked for the details here. She's not going to provide them without being asked. In other words, it's not important for her to say she's not going extra and offering more right now. The prosecutor says she did. Wendi confirms she did. So now here comes the question, which Wendi knew was coming, so why she tried to avoid it, I don't know. And what was that? Wendi's full answer to that is very different. It's not short, it's not 2-3 words anymore, it's longer. She says, I can't tell you I remember exactly, but she was hoping I would be supportive of my brother. Now we've got something to work with. I can't tell you I remember exactly. Now Wendi played a lot in her testimony about the fact she couldn't remember things. Even when she knew she was going to be reminded by transcripts and pages of a folder in front of her, Wendi would go to, I can't remember. It's very hard to disprove what someone remembers or prove what someone remembers. So she sits in this comfort of not remembering things a lot. It seems to be helpful to her. Here it is, I can't tell you I remember exactly. So let's go with that, I remember exactly before. So that is her saying, she does remember quite a lot, but she's decided to tell you, I'm going to tell you what I can't tell you here. I'm going to tell you that there are things I'm not going to tell you. I can't remember exactly. I do remember some things, but I'm going to tell you I don't remember everything. Don't push me for any more in this because I'm going to say, I don't remember. And also, it's I can't tell you I remember exactly. Not I don't remember exactly, which would be more direct and more solid. It's I can't tell you I remember exactly, i.e. I'm telling you I don't remember. What she's doing here is putting some, I think is weaselly words in there. I think she can remember exactly, but I can't tell you that I remember exactly, i.e. I'm not going to tell you exactly what I remember. But she was hoping I would be supportive of my brother. Supportive, I think, is doing a lot of work there in that sentence. I think that there was a lot more about what was demanded by Donna of Wendi in the trial of Charlie. Support, listen, I've had a close family member on trial. I was a witness there. I don't think my mum even said anything to me about what it was I should say, but I know her pretty well. She would have said, be truthful. They can't fight the truth. They can't argue with the truth. They can't catch you out when you tell the truth. I think that's where she would have gone. But no, Donna wanted support. But what does that mean? I bet she was a lot more prescriptive than just saying, please be supportive of your brother. I think there was more said there, which Wendi has boiled down to this very nice word, supportive of my brother. Listen, when you're in court giving testimony, you're supposed to be truthful. Not supportive, not unsupportive. You're supposed to be truthful. And she refers to Charlie as my brother. She refers to Charlie as my brother all the way through the extracts we're going to look at. What is that? Is this Wendi distancing herself from Charlie, who's been convicted in relation to the murder and is serving a life sentence? Is that why she wants to get this distance? I'm not like him. He's at arm's length. He's not Charlie, nice and close and cuddly. He's my brother at arm's length. Or does she feel disgust for him and she can't bring herself to? She doesn't feel close to him at all. She feels disgust and she refers to him as my brother rather than a closer name like Charlie. The prosecutor then says, okay, and do you know what her thoughts were afterwards? Wendi says, I do, because she's going back to her way of answering here, which is very short but truthful answers, but not giving anything to work with. Next is asked, okay, what were they? And Wendi says she was devastated. Now, the question was about Donna's thoughts. The question was, let's just get it up again. Do you know what her thoughts were afterwards? Wendi says, I do. What were they? I.e., what were her thoughts? And Wendi says she was devastated. Now, that might be truthful. Donna may well have been devastated at Wendi's testimony in court, but that's Donna's feelings, not her thoughts. Wendi is hiding a little bit there from us and just saying that Donna was devastated, but she hasn't taken the question on entirely, so I think there's a lot more to know about what Donna's feelings were after Wendi had testified last time. She didn't feel you were supportive, asks the question, and Wendi says no. Once again, short, truthful, I believe, but very, very to the point. So here, in this first question and answer session that we've looked at from Wendi, listen, I think this is a good chance to see what honest Wendi looks like. She doesn't give too much information. She's creating some distance. There's qualifications in what she says. There's some half answers that don't really take on the question, but you see that pattern of very short, succinct, and I believe truthful answers from Wendi. That's what Wendi looks like when she's telling the truth. We're going to see her deviate from that pattern as we go. And also, I think I've spotted a huge contradiction in Wendi's testimony, something I don't think that she meant to do. So pay attention when you're listening to the words of Wendi as we go through this. See if you can spot it too as we listen to more of Wendi in court.
Were you in any way involved in the plot to kill your ex-husband?
No.
Did you maybe know it was going to happen but not know the details?
I did not know it was going to happen, and I did not know any details.
Did you provide any information, even unknowingly in hindsight, that you think could have been used to assist the murderers?
I don't think so. I didn't provide any information.
What information do you have regarding your mother's involvement in the plot to kill your ex-husband?
I don't have information.
But you do admit that your brother said he looked into hiring a hitman to kill Dan Markel.
I don't. I admit that my brother made a tasteless joke repeatedly about buying me a TV because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman.
But then someone did hire a hitman who did kill Dan Markel, right?
Yes, that happened.
I think that is stone cold there from Wendi. Let's break down what she said. Were you in any way involved in the plot to kill your ex-husband, she says. And Wendi's answer is no. Now, that's the pattern we've seen before. Short answer. There's no content to it. It's just a no, not no, I wasn't involved. It's just a no. So it's slightly different from some of those answers like November 2023, where she gave it a time. There was content in the answer. There's no content there apart from the denial, but it is very short and it does answer the question. So let's go on and see if we can get any more data points. Did you maybe know it was going to happen? She's asked. Did you maybe know it was going to happen but did not know the details? And she says, I did not know it was going to happen and I did not know any details. Two non-contracted did nots there. In conversation, we tend to say, I didn't know it was going to happen and I didn't know any details. Wendi's gone for the much more formal, I did not know. Now, why do people do that? Well, sometimes they speak formally. Maybe Wendi is a formal speaker and she talks like that all the time. She doesn't often slip into things like didn't, wouldn't, couldn't. She would say the full thing. Maybe that is her natural way of talking. Liars use it as well because they believe that when they talk more formally and they say the full words, they will be believed more because it sounds more serious. It sounds like they're being really serious and committed to what they're saying because they're not using the slangy didn'ts, but they're using the more formal did not. Plus, it just means more. Did not means a little bit more than didn't. Why is she using it? Let's look through it and see if we can work out, is she a formal speaker or does she use these more contracted terms at times? I did not know it was going to happen, and I did not know any details. Now, this doesn't answer the question. Did you maybe know it was going to happen, but not know the details, was the question. I.e., did you know it was going to happen, but you knew no details? I did not know it was going to happen directly answers what she's asked. I did not know any details is not taking the question on, because the question assumes that she doesn't know any details. If this is what has been going on, that Wendi knew there was a plot but didn't know anything about it, when it was going to happen, who was going to do it, or anything like that. She didn't know the details. But Wendi seems to me to be going to maybe a prepared answer, something she's thought about before, which is, I did not know it was going to happen. I did not know any details, which is why her answer doesn't match the question. And why would you prepare answers? Why wouldn't you just go to court knowing the truth and being willing to just tell the truth as you know it, to listen to the question and answer the question you're asked to be as helpful as possible? Why would you need prepared answers? This looks like a prepared answer to me because it doesn't quite match the question. The next question is, did you provide any information, even unknowingly in hindsight, that you think could have been used to assist the murderers? And now Wendi is really out of this pattern. She says, I don't think so. I didn't provide any information. So here we've got two contractions. I don't think so, and I didn't provide any information. Not I do not think so, and I did not provide any information. So she's outside of her pattern a little bit here. I don't think so is not a certainty. It's a belief, which is absolutely fine. But you'll notice it's much less certain than everything that's been there before. Did you provide any information? I don't think so. Is also, I could have, but not to my belief, not to my knowledge, but I'm open to the idea that this could have happened. And then she says, I didn't provide any information. Now that's really wide. That's an absolute. I didn't provide any information. We talk in absolutes all the time when we don't really mean them. I've never done that. You have done it. You just want to talk in this absolute to convince people that you've never done it. You might mean you did it rarely, but I've never done that. Or I'm totally furious when you're a little bit mad. Those are the sort of deceptive absolutes that we use. When we use absolutes, they can very rarely be true. I mean, what's Donna saying here anyway? Because she doesn't say any information that could have been used to assist the murder. She doesn't finish the question part off. She just says, I didn't provide any information. Well, she's told us that she did provide information to her mum about where Dan was. Not to assist with a murder, but she would tell her mum where Dan was, what his movements were, and her mum would also know Dan's movements from what Wendi's movements were. She said that in testimony, so she did provide the information. She may believe that her mum didn't do anything with that information, and she may believe she wasn't deliberately giving information, but that's not what she says there. She says, I didn't provide any information. What, about anything? Ever? Well, that's what that answer says, and it can't be true. So why is she giving an answer that just cannot be true? Why is she not giving something that's a bit more nuanced and a bit more true? Again, I think it is all about sticking to this script, which is nothing at all to do with me. I've got to deny, deny, deny. What information do you have regarding your mother's involvement in the plot to kill your ex-husband? Big question there. She says, I don't have information. We've got don't there again. It's not I do not have information. She's used the contraction again. I don't have information. And have information, again, she hasn't finished it off. Remember when you did English classes and your English teacher said, yeah, your answer needs to fill everything from the question. Is, where were you today? Out. No, I was out today. You have to give the full answer. Now, we don't treat life like that, but the more content there is in an answer, the more believable it is. The more it refers to the question that we've been asked, the more believable it is. I don't have information, again, is this blanket denial. I don't have information. You do, because you've heard stuff in court. Surely you've heard stuff in court. You do. It's not believable again, this 100% absolute. She's then asked, but you do admit that your brother said he looked into hiring a hitman to kill Dan Markel. And Wendi stutters here. She's been very clear so far. When we stutter, it's stress. Especially when we stutter on the word I. She says, I don't. When we stutter on the word I, it means psychologically we're having a hard time connecting ourselves with I and what we're going to say next, for whatever reason, but it is very often a lie. And she says, I don't. I admit that my brother, not calling him Charlie again, my brother made a tasteless joke repeatedly about buying me a TV because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman. She's protecting someone there with that answer. Is she protecting herself in that I only ever heard jokes? Or is she protecting Charlie? Well, that would be dumb because he's already locked up. So she's protecting herself there with that answer, that I only will admit to hearing the jokes. Will you admit to the other stuff? I mean, again, it's a qualified answer. She has not taken on. Do you admit your brother said he looked into hiring a hitman to kill Dan Markel? If she hadn't heard that, surely she would say, I do not admit to hearing my brother say that. Instead, she goes the other way and talks about something else entirely that is not in the question. And then she's asked, but someone did hire a hitman who did kill Dan Markel, right? And she says, yes, that happened. That happened. That is your ex-husband. Someone hired a hitman to kill your ex-husband. That is the father of your children. Someone hired a hitman to kill the father of your children. I mean, that's put to you that this happened. You just go, yeah, that happened. There's no regret. There's no remorse. There's no anger. There's no desire for justice in there at all. Very cold and very factual. Yes, that happened. It's not a lie, but just boiling that terrible, terrible lifetime event for both you and your children into that. There's a level of coldness there for me. So in this section here, we're definitely seeing prepared answers and why the need for those prepared answers if everything's open and above board. And this, I don't think so, to the did you pass information on really opens me to the fact that she could have passed information on. In her head, she thinks she could have passed information on deliberately, unavoidably, naively. I don't know, but in her head, she feels she could have passed that information on. Listen, if Wendi's fascinating, her brother Robert, I don't think he's testified at one of these trials before, but he did testify this week. What he has to say about family dynamics is riveting, and he is coming up when we're done with Wendi, so stay here to get the lowdown on Robert Adelson. But back to the courtroom and back to Wendi.
Was part of the plot to kill your ex for you to have plausible deniability or to know very little about it?
I was not involved in any plot to kill Danny.
Were you shielded from the plot because, I don't know, you couldn't be trusted to keep a secret?
I was not involved in any plot to kill Danny.
So there, we have just two questions. Was part of the plot to kill your ex for you to have plausible deniability or to know very little about it? And she says, I was not involved in any plot to kill Danny. We've gone formal again. I was not involved in any plot to kill Danny. Were you shielded from the plot because, I don't know, they could not trust you to keep a secret? I was not involved in any plot to kill Danny. You notice it? It's the exact same wording, two answers to a question. It's like a robot that's only got a few answers programmed into it. Again, it's an absolute. Again, this feels like a prepared answer. And notice that the first time she's asked, the answer is kind of appropriate to the question. Was part of the plot to kill your ex for you to have plausible deniability or to know very little about it? Now, if you were not part of the plot, if you were not involved in any plot, then I don't know. I do not know of any plot. Instead, she says, I was not involved in any plot to kill Danny. She doesn't quite take on the question, but the answer is kind of appropriate to what she says. Were you shielded from the plot because you could not be trusted to keep a secret? I was not involved in any plot to kill Danny. Completely irrelevant to the question that is asked. It's the same words as she's given before, like this prepared and memorized answer. An absolute, I was not involved. And it's really, were you shielded from the plot because you could not be trusted to keep a secret? I don't know. If they couldn't trust me to keep a secret, I didn't know there was a plot going on. If there was a plot, I was not part of it. That would be more taking on the question and actually dealing with what you've been asked. However, she doesn't want to do that. For some reason, she doesn't want to open herself up and relax herself and just answer truthfully. She wants to go to these prepared answers. So in that very short extract, we've got the prepared answers again. Also, I think she's caught out by not having an answer to the second question. I think she's ready for the first one. Were you involved in a plot or were you shielded from it to have deniability? But the second one, I think you could not be trusted. She may not well have planned for that one properly. Now, do you ever feel like you're not being told the full story? Just like Wendi isn't doing here, is she? Well, you're right. It's happening all the time. Maybe not in as serious a situation as this, but it's happening all around us. And I'm here to giving you the key to seeing deeper, because this is about hearing the world with new ears. And I'm on a mission to share this skill with as many people as possible. So if you want to unlock that secret, subscribe to this channel or follow this podcast, join the movement and dive into the archives. You want to look into the Adelsons, you can do that. You want to look into people giving testimony in court, you can do that as well. There's so much waiting to be explored. And do you know someone who needs this, someone who deserves to hear the truth in their lives? Then do hit the like button. That helps this get out to many, many more people. Comment on this, share it, pass it on. Every single click, every single share, it fuels the fire for Never a Truer Word. It allows me to dig deeper, analyse further, and bring this life-changing skill to more people. This week, so many people getting into this because of the Donna Adelson trial, saying, oh my God, I never noticed that people do that all around me just now, or I'm learning so much from you. So that is great to hear. But also, isn't that a great thing to pass on? So like, share, recommend. It is a great gift to give. Let's go back into the courtroom and hear more from Wendi on the stand.
Why did you tell investigator Isom in your law enforcement interview that you were worried the police, or you were worried, I guess, in the police car on the way to be interviewed, that you might be considered a suspect?
Because I couldn't think of anything bad going on in his life other than the divorce. And frequently the ex-wife is a suspect.
Were you treated as a suspect?
I was not.
But you mentioned 9 times in your law enforcement interview being a suspect, didn't you?
I did, yes.
When you were approached at the restaurant, you weren't yet told that this was a shooting, were you?
I was not.
You were only told something happened with your ex-husband.
I don't even know if I was told that. I was very scared something happened to my kids, and that's why law enforcement was there, and they wouldn't tell me what was going on.
But they did reassure you that the kids were fine. You remember
They told me that law enforcement officers were with the children, which terrified me because I didn't know why my children would need law enforcement officers.
So you didn't know what this was about at all when you were in the police car?
In the car, they told me.
Okay, in the car they told you what?
They said, your ex-husband has been shot.
Okay. So that you learned that information prior to getting into the interview room?
Yes.
Okay.
This is one of the most revealing bits of testimony I think Wendi gives from a looking at what she says point of view. She's asked, you were worried, I guess, in the police car on the way to be interviewed that you might be considered a suspect. And Wendy's reply is, because I couldn't think of anything bad going on in his life other than the divorce. And frequently the ex-wife is a suspect. Now, that's fine. The ex-wife is a suspect. That's absolutely fine. But she ties it to anything bad going on in Dan Markel's life. Why does she assume it was a targeted killing aimed at or from someone who had something bad going on with him? Why did she think it was something bad that led to Dan's murder? Why did she not think, was it a drive-by shooting, a carjacking, someone mentally unstable running amok with a gun or something like that? Instead, she immediately jumped to the assumption that it was someone who had something bad going on with Dan, or someone that Dan had something bad going on with, and that was only her. Remember that. She couldn't think of anything bad going on in his life other than the divorce. That is what she says then in court. The assumption that it was a targeted killing and she couldn't think of anything bad in his life other than the divorce. She's asked, were you treated as a suspect? Short answers are back. I was not. Now, was she treated as a suspect or not? I don't know, but in her pattern, I was not is not I wasn't. So she's being formal again. So did she feel like she was being treated as a suspect and she's lying? Or did she just want to give this really emphatic I was not? Or was she not treated as a suspect? Don't know, but her formal language pattern is back again. Then look at the stress coming from Wendi. But you mentioned 9 times in your law enforcement interview being a suspect, didn't you? And she says, I did. Yes. Now, all the way through testimony, when she's asked directly what she says, she goes, I don't remember. And I'm surprised here that she didn't say, I don't know how many times I said it. And then it would be brought to her attention. Look, 9 times you said it. There's the 9 times that you said you were a suspect. Instead, she just agrees with it. Her pattern has been broken. Her safety response has been broken. This is what happens under stress. And the stress is coming out in the I did, yes. Where you'll know yourself, you maybe have got to have a conversation with someone and you'll be, I'll keep my cool, I'll take a breath before I talk, I'll listen to what they have to say, I'll keep my breathing under control so I don't get angry. And you start off like that, but your stress rises and you forget all those things you've said to yourself and you snap. Is that what's happened here? I did, yes. When it's brought up to her, how many times in her law enforcement interview she mentioned being a suspect? When you were approached at the restaurant, you weren't told yet this was a shooting, were you? I was not, she says. That formal language is back again. You were only told something had happened with your husband. I don't even know if I was told that, she said. So again, you were only told something happened to your husband. I don't even know if I was told that. You know what you were told. I was very scared something happened to my kids, and that's why law enforcement was there, and they wouldn't tell me what was going on. Well, wait a minute. They wouldn't tell you what was going on, or you don't even know if you were told that. The two things don't really hang together, Wendi, do they? You're trying to paint a picture at the time, and what I think that picture she's trying to paint is some of the things I said then might not have been logical or rational or sane because I was very scared. She's pulled out the mom card there as well. It was around the kids, so everyone can identify with people being scared around their kids or scared about their kids. So I think what she's doing here, because these two things don't hang together. I don't even know what I was told. They wouldn't tell me what was going on. Can't both be true, really, but I think it's that bit in the middle. I was very scared something was happening with my kids. That is important for her to get across. Look, these things might not make sense. It might even seem suspicious, but really I was saying them because in the moment, I was scared. I was terrified. It's not often she talks about emotions, but she is at this point. When it serves Wendi to talk about something, she'll talk about it. The prosecutor says, but they did reassure you the kids were fine. They told me that law enforcement officers were with the children, which terrified me because I didn't know why my children would need law enforcement officers. That doesn't answer the question. They did reassure you the kids were fine. She doesn't say yes, they did, because I don't know, I wasn't there. But my guess is they would say the kids are fine. The kids are fine. There's something else up. They told me law enforcement officers were with my kids, which terrified me. Again, I think this is just to get across the fact I was terrified. So if I said things that don't add up or don't quite work out for you or don't sound good, it's because I wasn't thinking clearly at the time because I was concerned about my kids. I was terrified and I was scared. The prosecutor says, so you didn't know what this was all about when you were in the police car? She says, in the car, they told me. Okay, in the car, they told you what? They said, your ex-husband has been shot, says Wendi. Now, this is an interesting one. She's not downplaying what happened to Dan. Not saying that, Dan was in hospital or anything like that. She's actually gone full frontal with your ex-husband has been shot. Quite often, guilty people will turn down the severity of what's happened. So if it's a murder, they'll say it was an attack. If something was stolen, they'll say something was taken, etc., etc. But she doesn't do any of that downplaying there. So you learned that information prior to getting into the interview room, and Wendi says, yes. Very direct answer there. I think this is, Wendi's truth pattern there. There's a large pause before the prosecutor says okay at the end of that. I wonder what she was thinking then. I don't know. If you do know, do let me know in the comments. Why was that pause there? I felt there was something more going on that I wasn't attuned to there with that pause before the okay. I analyse words, pauses, much harder for me. So this is very revealing. Here, I want you to remember, she assumed it was a targeted killing. Her first thought was this was a targeted killing, not a random attack. She's talking about being seen as a suspect is sensitive to her. We've got that I. She wants to tell us why it happened was because she was scared and terrified about the kids. She attempts to put her mentioning of that down to confusion caused by the police. I was a suspect, or I was talking about being a suspect, but only because of how the police were. It was nothing to do with the fact that I should be a suspect. But do remember the line, I couldn't think of anything bad going on with Dan apart from the divorce. I couldn't think of anything bad going on with Dan apart from the divorce, because in the next bit, see if you can spot the contradiction. And also, don't forget, Rob is still on the way. And I think he gives the game away on the family more than he ever meant to. But here's some more from Wendi.
Do you remember allowing law enforcement to take possession of your computer in that interview?
I told law enforcement to search my phone, search my computer, search my house, search my car. I was trying to be helpful.
Do you remember saying that it was okay for them to take the computer and keep it even though you had work things on there because you didn't think you would be going back to work?
I remember thinking it wasn't important. I couldn't imagine. My life fell apart.
But you didn't go back to work, did you, at FSU?
I did actually go back, not physically present, but I was still on the FSU payroll until December of that year.
Okay. In that interview with law enforcement, did you suggest that your parents are people who may have been angry enough to kill Dan Markel?
I suggested a lot of people who could have been angry enough to kill Danny.
And were some of the people my parents?
Yes.
Right. Wendi says what Wendi wants to say, what serves her best. We'll look into that. By the way, I am doing daily breakdowns on this trial, so if you subscribe to this channel, you will get those as well as the weekly breakdowns. At the end of the week, I'll get the best testimony from the week, like this, and break down what is truly being said in some of that testimony. The prosecutor says to Wendi, do you remember allowing law enforcement to take possession of your computer in that interview? And Wendi doesn't say, yes, I do, which is her pattern, as we know. She wants to say more here, which is self-serving, because she wants to get across just how helpful she's been. And would an innocent person not be helpful? Would a guilty person not be obstructive? That's what she's playing with here. So she wants to show how helpful she's being. Why does she want to show how helpful she's being? Why doesn't she just say yes? Wait for the next question. I told law enforcement to search my phone, so I told them to do it. I was so helpful, I told them what to do. I told law enforcement to search my phone, search my computer, search my house, search my car. Good on you, Wendi. I was trying to be helpful, is what she says. So, a very simple question. Do you remember allowing law enforcement to take possession of your computer in that interview? And she turns it into a look how helpful I have been self-serving answer. Do you remember saying it was okay for them to take your computer and keep, even though you had work things on there because you didn't think you would be going back to work? Now, Wendi doesn't answer that question. She doesn't say, yes, I remember that, or no, I don't remember that. She says, I remember thinking it wasn't important. Wasn't. She's used the contracted term again. I remember thinking it wasn't important. I couldn't. Contracted term again. I couldn't imagine. My life fell apart, so my life fell apart. Well, that's interesting because, yeah, her life has fallen apart since then. Her brother's in jail. Her mother's on a murder trial. The kid's dad has died. But none of those things had happened at this time. So her life hadn't fallen apart. This is with hindsight. So she's trying to persuade us again. It's not quite true. She's trying to give an answer that serves Wendi. She could say, yeah, I do remember that, or no, I don't remember that. Instead, she gives an explanation. I remember thinking my computer wasn't important. I couldn't imagine my life fell apart. Well, at that point, it hadn't. It has now. So again, it's a self-serving answer. Then the prosecutor says, but you didn't go back to work, did you, at FSU? And Wendy's answer is, I did actually go back, not physically present, but I was still on the FSU payroll until December of that year. I can't tell from that answer if she went back to work or not. It makes it sound like she was on long-term sick leave or something like that, still getting paid. I was on the payroll. It's very different from I actually did work. I did go back, not back, but I'm still on the payroll. That doesn't sound like back to me, but I don't know. Did she go back or not? Why can't she just give a straight answer? I continued to work at FSU for the rest of the year remotely or something like that. I don't know why she can't give a straight answer to that question. In that interview with law enforcement, did you suggest that your parents are people who may have been angry enough to kill Dan Markel? And she doesn't answer the question again. Yes, I did, is the truthful answer to that. I've seen the interview. Yes, I did. She says, I suggested a lot of people who could have been angry enough to kill Danny. So she doesn't answer the question. She's protecting her parents here because she did say that. Instead, she says, I suggested a lot of people who could have been angry enough to kill Danny. Now, why does she want to protect her parents here? Why does she not want to go, yes, I did? But also, I suggested a lot of people who could have been angry enough to kill Danny. But way back when, previously, I couldn't think of anything bad going on in his life. Is what she said. That's why she thought she might be a suspect, because there were no other suspects. There was no one obvious that might want to kill Dan Markel. All of a sudden now, when it suits her, when it serves her, she suggested a lot of people who could have been angry enough to kill Danny. Now, I don't know your personal definitions here, but mine certainly, if someone is angry enough to kill someone, then that is something bad going on in someone's life. So this massive contradiction. Wendi is giving answers that suit Wendi, that serve Wendi. So when it suits her to say, I couldn't think of anyone that was a suspect, therefore I was worried people would think it was me, she'll say that. When it's said to her, you suggested your mom and dad could have been involved in the plot to kill Dan Markel, she says, I suggested a lot of people who could have been angry enough to kill Danny. Contradiction there that I think is huge and really speaks to her credibility as a witness. And were some of those people my parents? She says yes at that point. So here, she is curating that image of helpfulness that we saw. Why do you need to curate that? Conflicting answers that she gives. All along the way, she's giving conflicting answers depending on what works best for Wendi. And she attempts to avoid a blatant truth. She did suggest her parents might have been mad enough to kill Danny in the interview. But instead of just admitting to that blatant truth, she attempts to avoid it. So what more does Wendi know that makes her want to avoid that? Okay, let's look at Robert Adelson. Now, I thought he was very truthful. I watched his testimony and I thought I'd be including it in this episode as a bit of an example of how truthful people talk. Now, he goes extra a lot, so he answers the question and then says more, which I thought was pent up feelings that have been built up for a long time, and finally he's got a chance to let it all out, and that's why he goes extra. However, he may still be doing that, but what he says when he goes extra, oh boy, it is revealing. Have a listen and see if you can spot it when we listen to Robert Adelson.
After the murder of Dan Markel, did Donna Adelson seem curious about who killed Dan Markel?
No.
Was there a complete lack of curiosity?
Yeah, nobody seemed curious.
Did you actually ever ask her, like after the murder, like, hey, like, what do you think happened? What do you?
Yeah, and the conversations were kind of rerouted, or that was certainly discouraged, and it was probably like maybe sometime like mid-August, when I finally had a chance to ask and say, what is going on? This was not a small event. This was getting a lot of notoriety, and I said, what do you guys think happened? And she had said, I don't know and I don't care. It doesn't concern me.
Was that out of character for her to not be curious and not be asking some questions?
Yeah, I mean, it was an unsolved murder of, my former brother-in-law, like someone that we all know very well. I mean, if it was like some neighborhood gossip, people would be interested. This was like national interest, and nobody had any curiosity about, who did this to Danny.
Is a person, you mentioned that, not only is it your brother-in-law, but it was like national news at that point as well.
Yes.
And regardless of it being national news or not, I mean, is a person dying from gun violence an extremely unusual thing to happen in your family?
Yeah, I mean, to this day, Danny's the only person that I know who's died from gun violence or been a victim of gun violence. So it's unique in that manner.
What would your mom, Donna Adelson, do if you did try to ask her any more about Danny's murder after that?
It wasn't a subject for discussion. It would be rerouted, or it was just not a subject to discuss.
When you say rerouted, do you mean like changing the subject?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, now, sometimes you need to remember it's Donna Adelson on trial here, because it feels like it could be Wendi on trial or even Charlie on trial again, but it's Donna on trial, which is acknowledged in the first question that we look at that Robert is answering here. After the murder of Dan Markel, did Donna Adelson seem curious about who killed Dan Markel? So he says no. Straightforward, direct there, just that no. Donna was not curious. Then he's asked, was there a complete lack of curiosity? And he says, yeah, nobody seemed curious. Now notice he was talking about Donna at first. He's asked about Donna. Did Donna seem curious about who killed Dan Markel? No. Was there a complete lack of curiosity? Well, Donna's still the subject of the question here. And he says, yeah, nobody seemed curious. Not she didn't seem curious, but nobody seemed curious. Now, who is that nobody? It's kind of got to be his family, hasn't it? I mean, it really has got to be his family that he's talking about. Donna and others. What he's saying there, in his own words, is not just that Donna wasn't curious, but nobody was curious. And by nobody, he's got to mean more than Donna, and more likely his family. Did you ever ask her, so again, this is about Donna, did you ever ask her, like after the murder, hey, what do you think happened? He says, yeah. There's your answer. Yeah, I did. And then he goes extra and says what those things are. This is, I think, him being helpful and giving an answer with more context. Also, he's going extra. This is important for him to say, and I think this is some of the pent out things coming out. And the conversations were kind of rerouted, or were certainly discouraged. Those are two sort of different things. Kind of rerouted is a little bit vague. What does that mean? Does it go somewhere else, or we talk about it but we don't really talk about it? Is that what kind of rerouted means? But certainly discouraged is much stronger. In fact, that makes it sound like he was told not to ask. Do not talk about this at all. That's not rerouted. That is discouraged. But it's two very different things. I think the second strong one is interesting. Was he told explicitly not to talk about it? Because that would be certainly discouraged. They were certainly discouraged. And it was probably like maybe around sometime in mid-August, when I finally had a chance to ask and say, what is going on? This was not a small event. This was getting a lot of notoriety. Now, this is mid-August, so this is sometime after the shooting. And he says, what is going on? Not what was going on, not what happened to Danny. What is going on at the current time when he was talking, which was mid-August after the shooting? What is going on? So I think he felt a sense at the very least, maybe he knew more, but he felt a sense at the very least that something was still going on. It wasn't the fact that something had happened, which was the murder of Dan Markel. It was that something is going on. He had that sense there. I think that comes through when he was talking. He then continues and says, I said, what do you guys think happened? And she had said, I don't know and I don't care. It doesn't concern me. So we've got him talking about she. She said, I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't concern me. So that's Donna talking. But you notice the question wasn't to his mom. What do you think happened? It's what do you guys think happened? So he was talking in a wider sense. He was talking to his family. And Donna said, I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't concern me. So again, he's letting us know through his language that there was more than just Donna involved in these conversations where the murder of Dan Markel wasn't spoken about. It was actually discouraged. The prosecutor says to Robert, was that out of character for her not to be curious and not to be asking questions? And he says, yeah, it was the unsolved murder of, my former brother-in-law. Spoke earlier about people downplaying what happened. Now, I'm not suggesting for a second Robert is involved, so would downplay it. What I just want you to know is, here's an innocent person talking about the slaying of someone close to him, and he calls it a murder. He doesn't downplay it to attack or assault or anything like that, or crime. He says it was the unsolved murder of, my former brother-in-law. Like someone that we know very well. If it was like some neighbourhood gossip, people would be interested. There was a national interest and nobody had any curiosity about, who did this to Danny. Nobody, again, it's not Donna didn't have this curiosity. I think Donna is part of the nobody. But again, I think he is implicating that his family were all the same here. His family were not talking about this. His family, all of them, had no curiosity because he's widening it out beyond Donna. He's not stating who it is. As a person, you mentioned that, this is your brother-in-law. This was like national news as well, yes. And regardless of it being national news or not, as a person dying from gun violence, an extremely unusual thing to happen in your family. He says, yes, to this day, Dan's the only person I know who's died from gun violence or been a victim of gun violence. The straight talking about the crime, again, gun violence, not this has happened to or anything. He doesn't play it down. It's a real useful data point for the future when you hear someone talk things down. So it's unique in that matter. What would your mom, Donna Adelson, do if you did try to ask her a little more about Danny's murder after that? He says it wasn't a subject for discussion, It would be rerouted or, it was just not a subject to discuss. So it was not a subject to discuss. That feels, again, like some barrier was put up a little bit more than rerouting, which is, I don't know. Did you see this is on TV tonight? That would be rerouting to me. Not a subject to discuss would be, do not ask me about this, or we do not talk about that in this house, or something like that. So I think he knows a barrier was put up, and wow, certainly he leaks that more than Donna avoided the conversations about Dan Markel. Now, who could that be? It could be Donna, who's on trial in connection with the murder. It could be Charlie, who's in jail, in prison, in connection with the murder. Does that involve Wendi? Does that involve Harvey? Are they part of this family group too? It's really, really possible from Robert's words. He was asked about Donna. He answered for the whole family. So what do I think to them? Look, I think Robert was very revealing. He was very aware in some sense that this is a family plot to kill Dan Markel. His words leak that. Even when he's asked about Donna, he replies for the whole family. And as for Wendi, Wendi says what suits Wendi best in these situations. And you can see that from her words. When she goes long and gives long answers, you can see the things that cause her stress. And you can see where she's quite happy to tell the truth, but not give any more information, like yes, and I do. So that's the wrap up for week number 1. Today, the defence began their case with Anne Cunningham, a longtime friend of Donna Adelson. Now, Anne told the jury that Donna was never a bad person. But the way she said it, the repetition and the persuasive tone, that raised questions for me.
Have you found her to be a hateful person?
Never.
Is she aggressive towards others?
Never.
Have you ever heard her threaten anyone?
Never.
Have you ever seen her harm anyone?
Never.
Have you ever heard her threaten to have somebody harmed?
No.
It didn't sound like memory to me. That sounded like a rehearsed argument. She also described the phone call from Donna on the day Dan Markel was shot, claiming Donna was very upset during the phone call and didn't know what happened. But the phone records don't seem to support that call, so I went back and looked at Anne's testimony to see if I could find any gaps in her words. And then at the end of this episode, I'm going to take a closer look at something many of you have asked to pull out, which is from day 6. And it's a text message from Donna to Wendi Adelson saying, "Your brother Charlie protected you for years. That one line, you're right, it opens a lot of doors." This is a quick look at day 7 in the Donna Adelson trial. These daily breakdowns focus only on the courtroom language. So none of the legal issues, none of the courtroom drama, just looking at what people say, how they say it, and also what slips through. And if you missed it, my first full statement investigation deep dive went live over the weekend, looking at the most revealing testimony from week 1 of the Donna Adelson trial. Let's have a look at a couple of text messages that followed up day 6, and there was so many saying this. I asked about the pause between Wendi talking about finding out Dan had been shot in the police car and the prosecutor going, "Okay." And this one from Daba, typical of what many people said. The pause is because Wendi was not told in the police car, she was told in the interrogation room, according to previous trial testimony, and also her reaction when told in the interrogation room, which is available on YouTube to watch. Thank you for everyone who filled me in on the details of that. And let's pay some attention to RFSS. These YouTube channels are a bunch of BS for people that don't have a life. I don't know if I don't have a life for making this or if you guys don't have a life for watching it, but that's what RFSS thinks of you. So let's get to Anne Cunningham then. Longtime friend of Donna Adelson, giving testimony today. Character witness, if you like, talking about Donna, and she's asked some questions about, has she ever seen Donna do bad things like this?
With respect to Mrs. Adelson and your observations of her over these, 15 years, have you found her to be a hateful person?
Never.
Is she aggressive towards others?
Never.
Have you ever heard her threaten anyone?
Never.
Have you ever seen her harm anyone?
Never.
Have you ever heard her threaten to have somebody harmed?
No.
Right, a lot of reliance there on the word never, which means not ever, never, not at any time. However, it appears in deception very, very often. Now, a lot of these questions are yes-no questions. They can be answered with a very simple yes or no. And yet, Anne here doesn't want to just say no. She wants to use never like a super no, like very persuasive. She really wants to persuade us about Donna's character here, I believe, which is why we have that use of never rather than no. But it just feels rote, as if she knows she's going to say never to everything, because never doesn't actually match the question asked sometimes. Have you ever found her to be a hateful person? Now, no would do there, but it's that persuasive never. Is she aggressive towards others? Never. Now, that one doesn't quite match. Is she aggressive towards others? Never. That's past. She never has been, not is, which is now. So that doesn't quite match that never. Again, it just feels to me like she is determined here to answer never. This highly persuasive word compared to a more truthful, honest, straightforward no. Is she aggressive towards others? Never. Have you ever heard her threaten anyone? Never. Have you ever seen her harm anyone? Never. So it's this never rather than no. And then on potentially the most damning question of the lot, if the answer was yes, have you ever heard her threaten to have somebody harmed? Which would be the whole crux of the matter. Have you ever heard her threaten to have Dan harmed or anyone harmed? Is this her character? Is this who she is? Does she want to harm people that she doesn't like? And instead of never, we get no. The pattern is interrupted there. Now, I wonder what is going on. Why do we get this more straightforward no there rather than have you ever seen her harm anyone? Never. Threaten anyone? Never. Aggressive? Never. Hateful person? Never. Why do we get that less persuasive one there? Now, one take on it could be that this is the truth. She's never heard her threaten to have anyone harmed, and that actually Anne had to think about this one a little bit more because she just wasn't ready for the question. She wasn't prepared for it. So she thinks about it for a while and then says, no, a much more truthful and honest question than these persuasive nevers. If you want a bonus on this, just rewind this video 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, and watch Anne's head movements when she is doing never. She nods along in agreement at the first part where she's asked how long she's known Donna for. And then Anne, well, when she's saying never, her head doesn't seem to match the words. Let's get some more from Anne now, talking about the day Dan Markel was murdered.
I want to talk to you, I'll lead you forward to the date that Danny Markel was murdered. That was July the 18th of 2014. Do you recall speaking to Mrs. Adelson on that date?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and can you explain to us how you were contacted and the nature of the conversation?
I was called, and Donna was quite hysterical.
Okay.
And she said to me, Danny's been shot.
Sustained. Do not speak to what anyone said out of court, ma'am.
Your Honor.
Please continue.
May we approach, please? Thank you, Judge. Before we talk about what she might have said to you, at the time that you spoke to Mrs. Adelson, was it the day that Danny was murdered?
When he was shot, yes.
Okay. And yeah, I use murdered because obviously he didn't pass away until the next day, but
yes,
he was shot and barely surviving on the 18th. So that's when I refer to that. That's why I say that
yes.
date. Okay. So when you spoke to her, did she call you or did you call her? Do you recall?
She called me.
Okay. And when she called you, did she appear to be upset?
Very.
Was she crying?
Yes.
Was her tone of voice, based on your knowledge of her for the 15 years, did she seem to be upset?
Very.
Okay. Did she seem to be at a point in time where she had just learned what had occurred?
Yes.
Did she indicate to you whether she had just learned that this had happened?
Yes.
Okay.
She did.
I'm sorry?
Yes, she did.
Okay.
Right, I'm going to pull apart two things there. The first thing is, do you remember this? Was there this phone call? And Anne says, I was called. Now that is kind of passive. Who called you? I was called. Not Donna called me. I was called. It's very passive. And why could this be? Well, if this phone call didn't happen, look, I wasn't there. I don't know whether the phone call happened or whether it didn't happen. I don't know what's in the phone records. But if this is a constructed call, if this is a made up call, if this did not happen, then what's the most important thing for Anne to get across is the fact that this phone call happened. Not the fact that Donna called her, but the fact that this phone call happened to her. I was called. She, when at the very beginning of that, when she is talking about it, she doesn't say Donna called me. She does say later when she's asked, was it Donna that called you? She says yes. She says, I was called. So in her words, she doesn't say Donna called her. That was the thing that got me thinking, did this call really happen? Then we have more persuasive language from Anne. Twice, the defender asks, was she upset? I don't know why she asked the same question twice, but she did ask the same question twice. And her answer, Anne's answer, was the exact same twice. Very. Again, just like the never. This could be answered with yes. Was she upset? Yes, but she feels this need to persuade us that Donna was upset on this call. Not just the need to give us the truth that yes, Donna was upset, but this need to persuade us that Donna was upset with that word very. So I've got a couple of indications there that this is more about picture painting than it is about telling us the truth. I was called. The most important thing to her was that a phone call happened. Not who called who or anything like that, but I was called. That's the most important thing I've got to get across. And then this persuasive use of the word very to describe how upset Donna was. Let's get some more from the same piece of testimony. This one's got something really interesting inside it.
And while she was upset, what did she indicate to you?
She told me that Danny had been shot and that they were going to Tallahassee and that she was very concerned and worried about Wendi and the boys, whether they were in danger.
Okay.
Because she did not know who had shot him.
Okay. And did she indicate whether she was concerned about Danny and him being in the hospital?
Absolutely.
Okay.
A bonus for regulars is the absolutely at the end there. Again, there's more persuasive language, like a super yes. Was she concerned about Danny? Absolutely. yes would have done, but she feels the need to persuade us of Donna's emotions during this call. Now, she's asked, what did Donna indicate there in the call? And she says that Donna indicated that Dan had been shot, that she was very worried about the boys, and that she was coming to Tallahassee. And then she goes on with this little extra thing of Donna indicated she did not know who shot him, which just feels a little bit extra. It feels like, again, there are things that Anne has to hit in this testimony. The phone call happened. I was called. She was very upset, absolutely upset about Dan Markel. But it's the phrasing she uses when she does that extra thing that she feels the need to force in at the end, because she did not know who shot him. Not no one knew. Not they didn't know. Donna was the only person who did not know who shot him. In other words, again, I believe for Anne, the important thing that she wants to get across in her testimony is not that at the time, no one knew who shot Dan. The police did not know. Wendi did not know. Donna did not know. They did not know. It was not known would be all justifiable words to use, although it still would feel a little bit extra. It's she did not know who shot him. It's just important for Anne to convince us, to persuade us again that Donna knew anything about this, which is why she uses that strange wording. It was not they did not know who shot him, or there was a worry the killers were still loose, or the shooters were still loose. What's important is Donna here. She did not know who shot him. And also, we've got the she did not know who shot him. She's going to say what? I don't know. What happened? Something like that. But she thinks better of it because maybe she realises she did not know what happened. Is almost like something out of a child's book. She did not know what happened. She did not know who shot him. So Anne, I think, had an agenda to persuade us about Donna's state of mind. And then when you look at that, well, what are the things she's trying to persuade us of? That Donna was never a bad person. What an absolute. We can all never be a bad person. We can all be a bad person sometimes. Never is just not believable. She's trying too hard to persuade us there. She's trying too hard to persuade us that this phone call happened and that Donna was very upset and she did not know who shot him. I didn't like Anne's testimony very much at all. Right, let's jump back a day then to day number 6. And this text exchange which came up, which so many people have asked me to analyse, it's a text exchange between Donna and Wendi. And Donna texts Wendi and says, there's a verdict. And Wendi gives a very passive-aggressive response. I love you very much. Call if you feel like you can. And Donna sends a text to Wendi. Your brother protected you for years. Now you are not guilty. Your lawyer took very good care of you. You can bury me in the dress that I bought for Lincoln's bar mitzvah. Let's dig into that text from Donna. Your brother protected you for years. Now you are not guilty. Your lawyer took very good care of you. You can bury me in the dress that I bought for Lincoln's bar mitzvah. Okay, first of all, your brother protected you for years. That's in the past tense, suggesting that the protection is over, that the protection happened certainly before the verdict coming in. Your brother protected you for years, so past tense. And it's all in the past tense, so there's no protection going on now. She also starts the next section with now. Now you are not guilty. So again, that's a comparison word. So the protection was in the past, and now the comparison word is in the present. Now you are not guilty. Also, we've got this use of protected. Your brother protected you for years. So Donna must feel that Wendi needed some kind of protection to use that word protected, because it's a very specific word. It's not looked after you, cared for you. It's protected. Your brother protected you for years, and that protection is now over. Now you are not guilty. Now that I don't know what that means. If you've got any thoughts on why she is saying that, now you are not guilty, stick it in the comments. You are not guilty would be fine if Donna believed that Wendi was innocent here. You are not guilty. But why is it now you are not guilty? What has changed there? If you've got any ideas, do let me know in the comments. She then says, your lawyer took very good care of you. Now, is that a typo? She typed law space lawyer, I've got it wrong. Or does Wendi have more than one lawyer? And it's the lawyer that took very good care of her. Is that suggesting that other lawyers didn't take quite such good care of her? Is it sarcastic that Wendi is just lawyered up to the hilt around everything? Is it just a slip? I don't know, but that's very interesting. And then we have this emotional blackmail. You can bury me in the dress that I bought for Lincoln's bar mitzvah. An insight into the real Donna Adelson there, I think. Thank you to everyone who suggested I take a look at that. It's 20 words, 25 words, and it is so revealing, but it does also leave me with some question marks. So do let me know if you've got any ideas about the "now you are not guilty" and why Donna could be using those words in the comments. And that's day 7 wrapped. Well, that was a dramatic day at the Donna Adelson trial. Donna prevaricating for a long time. Was she going to take the stand, or was she not going to take the stand and affirm her right to silence? In the end, she decided not to speak up, and the defence rest its case. What do you think the verdict's going to be? Let me know in the comments. Now, before that, we saw some evidence from 2 family law experts who dealt with the Adelson divorce. And man, it sounded like they were just going to talk about the ins and outs of the divorce, but these guys seemed on a mission to darken the name of the murder victim in this trial, Dan Markel. I'll point out how their words showed that. And if you wanted something else unexpected, we had this.
But she invited me to a party. It was called Wendi Gets Her Groove Back. And I had several friends I knew of Wendy's that were there as well. And it was just sort of a, Wendy's in a good place. Come celebrate my new life.
Wendi Gets Her Groove Back party. Did she really call it that? I've looked at the words and I've got the answer in this breakdown. This is a quick look at day 8 of the Donna Adelson trial. These daily episodes focus on the words said in court and nothing else. So no legal drama, no courtroom issues, just the words said in evidence and the words on the stand and what those words reveal. Now, we've been doing daily updates. Today looks like the last day of full-on evidence, but we did hear Donna talk, and if there is any testimony from across the whole trial where you want me to look into the words that people said, then do let me know in the comments. Now, some of your comments from day 7, and this was the text that I looked at with Donna talking to Wendi and saying, "Now you're not guilty." And I wanted to know what that meant. Seth suggested she's saying, "Now you are not guilty because Charlie is taking the fall for Wendi. Charlie is the one who protected her." Could be interpreted as not talking and going to prison for her. I'll let you think in there, Seth. Phil here says, "Now you are not guilty, but in the future your guilt may come out." So he's gone with the word now, meaning something there. Now you are not guilty, but in the future. Phil, thank you very much for your comment. We have Paul saying the text said, "Now you are not guilty," because Donna is saying Charlie went down for Wendi, just like he has protected her for years. So now that the verdict is out, Wendi looks innocent. Charlie's verdict is a type of protection for Wendi, at least in public opinion. So thank you for all the comments on that part. I also asked, why did Donna text your lawyer? Was that a typo, or was she just having a go at the number of lawyers that Wendi had? And I think this one sums up quite nicely what I think has happened, which is, Jack, I think the text from Donna to Wendi, she may have meant new lawyer, the one who told her not to speak to the family. I think that's perfectly acceptable. I did think it may well be a typo, but a typo for new lawyer instead of lawyer. So on to the divorce attorneys, people who have taken a lot of money from the Adelsons over the years. And 2 divorce attorneys got up and spoke today about the discussions, the divorce, the process between Wendi Adelson and Dan Markel. And I'm going to break down some of the things they said, because it felt to me like they were on a mission, and that mission was very Donna friendly. Here's the first thing I'm going to look at. Have a listen to this.
And in that motion, almost all of the related violations were not violations at all. There were no court orders requiring her to do what he wanted her to do. So he wanted a certain number of video calls, and she didn't give him enough video calls. Well, video calls weren't required. He asked for a certain number of phone calls, and a number of phone calls wasn't required. He was asking for, there was some right of first refusal. He didn't like that when Wendy's parents would come to town, that she would maybe go to dinner with friends and let them spend time with the kids. Or she would let them stay home from school so her parents could spend time with them. And they were little babies. And he didn't like that because he wanted to be able to go to the child care during her parenting time so he could see them every day. And I think the child care person had asked him probably not to do that, but he wanted to do that. And he wanted her to go to like a therapist and follow the therapist's advice on basically doing what he wanted her to do. So it was a lot of noise trying to enforce something that wasn't a provision to enforce. There was no underlying court order to enforce.
I didn't like that bit of testimony because it felt very much like Operation Trash Dan, make him sound unreasonable. And I think that was maybe to frame some of Donna, who'd be the most important person here because they're appearing as witnesses for Donna, to make her appear as reasonable in the face of all this provocation from Dan Markel. But did she believe what she was saying when she was telling us all these list of issues that were there? I'm not entirely sure. Let's look at a couple of them. The first one was when she said, I think the childcare person had asked him probably not to do that. I think, just think, very vague word, I think, so that's not knowing for certain, the childcare person had probably, so what, probably, just guessing at it, probably asked him probably not to do that. You're in court, you should be testifying to facts and not using all these vague things about, I think the childcare person had asked him probably not to do that. She's certainly not saying it with any certainty. So why did she feel the need to say it? Is this just to add another layer into how unreasonable Dan Markel was? And then there's another one. She says that Dan wanted Wendi to follow the therapist's advice on basically doing whatever he wanted her to do. Follow the therapist's advice on basically. When we use that word basically, we're using it to boil down things and give a gist of what you feel was going on there. So there was a lot more to that. Definitely a lot more to that, which this, and it's Linda Bailey, she's just taken down to basically. Follow the therapist's advice on basically whatever he wanted her to do. So while she may have given a big list of all these things that Dan was being unreasonable about, an emotion that she didn't expect anyone to take seriously, when it comes to listing them, she shows that she's certainly got some doubt about actually what she's talking about. I think the childcare person had asked him to probably not do that and follow the therapist's advice on basically doing whatever he wanted her to do. The worst possible impression that she can put on that. She says some more here.
Now, with respect to the complaint about my client allegedly saying that she hated Dan Markel or she called him stupid, was that allegation a feature of his motion?
No, it was buried, like I said, 8 points down, 8, 10, 12 pages down.
Just a few paragraphs of his motion?
Yeah, 3 paragraphs.
So, are you any clearer on what was going on there? Was that allegation a feature of this motion, is the question that was asked. And she says no, straight away. Yeah, so that's an answer there, no. But then she tells us where it did feature in the motion. It was buried, like I said, 8 points down, 8, 10, 12 pages down. Where was it? And why, when you were asked, was that allegation a feature of this motion, why did you say no and then tell us exactly where it was in the motion? It was buried, like I said, 8 points down, 8, 10, 12 pages down. Was it 8 points down? 12 pages down? Why are you not certain? Why, again, are you putting the worst possible spin for Dan Markel in this answer? She does some more here. Let's have a listen to more of what she has to say.
Did you find anything unusual about my client, Donna Adelson's involvement in her daughter's divorce?
No. We have parental involvement, as Ms. Adamson said, often. Sometimes it's employer involvement. Maybe they're very attached to their employer and they want to nurture them. Or we'll get siblings who are lawyers involved. So family involvement, and especially moms, I see a lot.
A lot of mothers?
A lot of mothers. They're worried about their babies no matter how old they are.
Did you notice what went on there? The question was about Donna. Did you find Donna's involvement in Wendi's divorce unusual? And she gives quite a long answer there. It starts with no, so that's an indication she didn't find it unusual. And then she talks about, in order, parents. Well, a mother would be a parent, but it's wider. Oh, by the way, she says we, so she's not talking from her own personal experience. She's talking from a wider experience than that. We get parental involvement. Employers involved in divorce. I've never heard of that before, but it's seemingly what comes after parents. Then she mentions siblings. And then she goes on to talk about mothers. And the question was, did you find Donna's involvement unusual, not normal? And she says no. Then she talks about all the people that do get involved in divorces, finishing with mothers, and she's very upbeat on mothers take part in divorces, quite a lot. They care about their babies. Did you notice what is missing from her answer? Nothing at all about Donna. She's been asked about Donna's involvement, and was it usual, was it unusual? And she says what normally happens, how all these people get involved, parents, employers, siblings, mothers get involved. She doesn't talk about Donna's involvement and how it related to her normal experience of divorces where mothers are involved at all. She took Donna completely out of the question. She talked about what usually happened, but she didn't say how Donna related to that. I've got one more thing from her. I want you to have a listen to what it is she says here and see if you can spot her using a very similar tactic.
Did you see my client's use of the nickname Gibbers to just to refer to Mr. Markel?
I did.
Did you find that especially provocative?
No. I mean, gibbers means someone who speaks gibberish. And if you look at Mr. Markel's motions and memorandums and responses he filed in this case, it was somewhat applicable. He was very verbose. If you looked at his writings as a complete layperson, they may at first glance seem somewhat intimidating, but when you broke them down paragraph by paragraph, they were inconsistent. They didn't make sense. They referred to, in multiple situations, he was seeking enforcement of things that were not court ordered, even afterwards in the February 2014 timeframe. So he was very wordy. He would file a 16-page response, and then he'd file a 16-page memorandum that said the same thing, and then he'd file a motion related to that said the same thing. So he was, a lot of his, the things that he filed, papers that he filed, which were signed by his lawyer, but they were consistent throughout all the lawyers, so it appeared that he was drafting them, were very, very wordy and full of hyperbole.
So she was asked about the use of the name Gibbers to refer to Dan Markel. Now, she says Gibbers means talks a lot, and that is, it's not true, frankly. The name Gibbers has been given to him for a very different reason, as confirmed by Wendi in court in testimony. But she was asked, did you find the use of that name, did you find that especially provocative? What was her answer to that question? You heard her. Well, she did say no twice, and then she went on to talk about how Dan Markel talked a lot. And not just talked a lot, could come across as intimidating at first, repeated himself over and over and over again, asked for things that he was not allowed to ask for. So she took that question, and instead of saying, no, I didn't find it provocative, she moved it off onto an off-ramp. She took a diversion, and she went to talk about basically framing Dan again as an infuriating person with which to deal with, because in this case, he was so verbose, he was very wordy. She used all of that as a diversion. So she took the question, did you find the use of gibbers especially provocative, and she used that as a springboard to go on to one of her hobby horses again about how infuriating Dan Markel may be. In other words, if you hear of Donna or Wendi using some language to describe Dan Markel which is not particularly pleasant, it was because Dan wasn't a nice person. Nothing to do with Wendi or Donna's characters, it was all to do with the deceased Dan Markel's character. And that, I think, was the main thrust of what it was that she wanted to get across when she was giving her evidence. Now, here's another thing that turned up today, and it was Wendi gets her groove back party. That was what was unveiled in court today. But did Wendi really call her party Wendi gets her groove back? Let's listen to how the first attorney that we heard from, Kristen Adamson, let's just listen to how she discussed it today to see, was the party really called that? Have a listen.
Shortly after the divorce was final, did Wendi invite you to a get her groove back party?
I don't remember when the party was, whether it was a month or 2 or 3, but she did invite me to a party in her new, I think it was an apartment or townhouse. I don't remember what it was exactly, but she invited me to a party. It was called Wendi Gets Her Groove Back, and I had several friends I knew of Wendy's that were there as well, and it was just sort of a Wendy's in a good place, come celebrate my new life party. Yeah, in Tallahassee.
So there's the answer about the party. Did you notice all the doubt that was going on there? Because we had doubt about the date. I don't remember what the date was. Doubt about the location. Yeah, it was in Tallahassee, but was it in a townhouse? Was it in an apartment? She can't remember any of that. there was doubt as to why, because she said it was sort of celebration of getting her life back. So just doubt about why it was a sort of celebration. But very, very directly, with no deception detected in her words at all, did Kristen say it was called Wendi Gets Her Groove Back. So was the party called that? Did Wendi call the party Wendi Gets Her Groove Back? Yes, she did. We finally heard from Donna Adelson herself on trial for the murder of Dan Markel. Now, her attorneys, they wouldn't say whether Donna planned to take the stand or not, so the judge pressed her directly, asking if she understood her rights and whether she would take the stand.
What is your decision concerning these two rights?
This time I don't want to testify.
Donna didn't say much, just a few sentences, but the words she uses are telling. They give us a glimpse into how Donna thinks, what's important to her, and why she didn't take the stand. Yes, by the end of this breakdown, you'll know why, in her own words, Donna Adelson did not take the stand. This is a quick look at the words of Donna Adelson, because that's what I've been doing all the way through the trial. Daily updates, looking only at the words that are used, scrapping everything else, and just looking at the words given in evidence and the words given in testimony. And I've still got one more deep dive to do into the testimony at the trial. If there's anyone's testimony you'd like me to really look into, do let me know in the comments. Also, I think there's an appetite for a lot more looking at the Adelson. So if there's anything from past trials you'd like me to look at as well, do drop your suggestions in the comments. But if you want that deep dive looking at the testimony in this trial, then do subscribe to this channel to make sure you don't miss it. It will be coming soon, so subscribe to make sure that you don't miss it. So back to Donna then. It was a day where she wasn't going to testify, couldn't answer whether she was going to testify or not. Look, the judge ended up taking matters into his own hands, and he spoke to Donna and we heard her words, which means I can break them down. So here he is, pressing Donna.
Mrs. Adelson, the question remains, as it relates to your right to remain silent and your right to testify, what is your decision concerning these two rights?
This time I don't want to testify.
Very well. As I've previously stated, the jurors will be instructed that your silence cannot be held against you in any way.
Donna said, at this time, I don't want to testify. Now, lots of people pointed out the first thing that I'm going to point out here, which is she started off with at this time. That was the very first thing she said, and she qualified it. It wasn't, I don't want to testify. It was at this time, I don't want to testify. Now, what was going on here? Why was it just at this time? Why was it not just a blanket? I don't want to testify. Well, it could be Donna wanting to have some sort of control over things here. It wouldn't have surprised me if she came in the next day and said, actually, I do want to testify. Changed my mind. She left that wide open with at this time, but it could just be that sense of control that she wants to have over everything. So I'm not giving you the answer you specifically asked for. I'm just going to tell you my answer at this time. So at this time, I don't want to testify. Also, we're going to look at more that Donna said in these exchanges with the judge. Time is a concept that comes up a lot. I don't know if you watched any of it, but I got the impression that the defense were delaying a lot yesterday and trying to make things go longer, and they kept asking for extra time. And Donna certainly mentions time in her answer. I think time was some sort of defense strategy that they were playing. She does own what she says. She says, at this time, I don't want to testify. So although she's been consulting with her attorneys a lot, it's not we don't want me to testify or they don't want me to testify, or even I'm listening to my attorney's advice and I'm not going to testify. It's very much from her. This, I think, is her decision. Quite rightly, I don't want to testify. She owns it through the use of that word I. And then we've got another interesting one. I don't want to testify. The words we choose are not accidental. We choose the ones that best fit what's going on in our head most of the time. And so she says, at this time, I don't want to testify. What she doesn't say is, I'm not going to testify. That would be very concrete. That would be, I'm not going to testify. I don't want to testify. Therefore, she's telling us that she doesn't want to testify. Not that she's not going to testify. What's important to her is not wanting to testify. That could be said for all sorts of reasons. Maybe someone does want her to testify. Maybe another time, at a different time, she will want to testify. Maybe she's said to people, I will testify, but now it's I don't want to testify. It's much less certain. It's a want rather than a I'm not going to testify. Again, this could just be leaving it open to this at this time, and maybe she didn't want to give a final answer, thinking, if I change my mind, I can walk back in and just say, look, I said at this time I didn't want to. Well, now I want to. So there's a whole load of wriggle room in this statement that she's given at this time. I don't want to testify. Let's move on and hear some more from the exchanges between the judge and between Donna Adelson.
You have the right to remain silent, and the jury will be instructed that your silence cannot be held against you in determining the merits of this case. Do you understand this?
I do understand.
Do you also understand that you have the right to testify as a witness in your case in chief on your own behalf?
Yes, Your Honor, I understand.
You understand if you do choose to take the witness stand, you will be cross-examined by one of the prosecutors.
Yes, I'm aware of it.
You understand that your credibility will be placed before the jury like any other witness.
Yes, Your Honor, I understand.
Have you been able to discuss with your attorneys the two rights that the court has placed before you?
Yes, we've discussed the rights.
Okay, now I believe there Donna reveals why she didn't want to take the stand. And that is in the pattern of her answers. So the judge is asking her questions on the right to remain silent. She has a right to testify. She will be cross-examined. Her credibility will be tested like any other witness. And have you discussed the rights with your attorneys? And Donna's answers, they follow a pattern apart from two of the answers to those questions. So let's break them down. On most of them, she says, I do understand that. On the right to remain silent, I do understand that. She has a right to testify. She says, yes, Your Honour, I understand that. That her credibility will be tested just like any other witness. Yes, Your Honour, I understand that. So I understand that is the pattern there. And that is in the question. You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that? She says, I understand that. You have the right to testify. Do you understand that? She reflects back, I understand that. Do you understand that your credibility will be tested just like any other witnesses? Yes, Your Honour, I understand that. So we've got two outlier questions there. Let's deal with one of them. It's the one where she doesn't say, I understand that. She says, yes, we've discussed the rights. Well, she was asked, it's not, do you understand that you should discuss the rights? The question was, have you discussed the rights with your attorney? And she says, yes, we discussed the rights. So she is listening to the question, do you understand or have you discussed? And she's reflecting in her answer that she has listened to the question and she is answering the question directly. When the question is, do you understand that? She says, I do understand that. Or, yes, Your Honour, I understand that. When it's, have you discussed your rights? Yes, we've discussed the rights, which leaves one outlier to the pattern there. And that's, do you understand that you will be cross-examined by one of the prosecutors? And she says, yes, I'm aware of that. I don't think she wanted to be cross-examined by one of the prosecutors. In fact, I think she would have quite happily got up there and told us her own story and taken softball questions from her attorneys. But when it is, do you understand that you will be cross-examined by one of the prosecutors, instead of saying, yes, Your Honour, I understand that, she says, yes, I'm aware of that. And so therefore, breaking the pattern, and she is proving that she is listening to the questions and reflecting back the questions all the time, apart from about being cross-examined by a prosecutor. She says, I'm aware of that. Not I understand that, but I am aware of it. I am aware that these prosecutors, and we've seen the prosecutors, they are fierce. She is aware of that. And I believe that it's the thought of cross-examination, not getting up and telling her story, but the thought of cross-examination that has put Wendi off testifying. Let's hear some more from her talking to the judge.
Concerning those rights as to whether you will remain silent or whether you will testify, have you made a decision concerning this matter?
I haven't. I'm not prepared to make that decision. This decision affects the rest of my life.
Mrs. Adelson, you're in the same position as every other criminal defendant who faces trial. Ultimately, you must decide whether you will testify or whether you will not. I cannot make you testify. Your attorneys cannot make you testify. but ultimately you must choose whether you will testify or not.
I don't have to choose. I was hoping I would have some time to speak to my attorney.
This has already been discussed, ma'am. What is your choice?
So this was obviously earlier before she said, I don't want to testify. This was her being pushed by the judge for a choice. And Donna uses two sentences in her answers there. The first one was, I haven't. I'm not prepared to make that decision. That this decision affects the rest of my life. Now, once more, we will see she's got some ownership on it here by using that pronoun I. I haven't. I'm not prepared to make that decision. So this is about her. She's certainly in control of this, which is... Look, I think Donna is very into her control, but she is in control of this, which is right. And she's signifying that by her use of the I and owning what she says. And then she says, no, I haven't made the decision. She says, I'm not prepared to make that decision. Now, that's an interesting word. What does she mean by prepared? Well, it could be they were asking for time to discuss this a little bit more. It could be that she feels that she hasn't prepared enough. She hasn't been prepared enough. She hasn't got enough information. So I'm not prepared to make that decision. You'll notice she is owning the decision. I'm not prepared to make that decision. However, is it just kind of arrogance? I'm not prepared to make that decision. You know, when someone presses you for something, I mean, normally it's less high stakes than will you go up at your murder trial and take the stand and testify. But I'm not prepared to make that decision. That means, you're trying to press me for something that I don't want to do. I'm not prepared to make that decision. Is that the use that she's got there? Is it that slight arrogance? Again, is it about control with her here? You can try all you like to control me and tell me that I need to make the decision. I'm just going to tell you, I'm not prepared to make that decision. It's not, I haven't made that decision. I haven't made my mind up yet. It's, I'm not even going to get to the point to make that decision. Potential arrogance showing through there. Also, preparation. Preparation takes time, and time is a concept that comes through time and time again. Excuse the pun, when Donna is talking. Time is a concept that comes through often, as I think is a better way of saying it, when Donna is talking. I'm not prepared to make that decision. She's not got to the point yet. She hasn't reached the time yet where she's making that decision. Then she says that this... Bit of a stutter there, because we stutter when we're stressed. No matter who you are, you'll be stressed when you're having this conversation with a judge at the trial where you're on trial for murder. This decision affects the rest of my life. Now, there's an interesting thing that comes out. This decision affects the rest of my life. Well, does it? Well, it might. If she thought that she could get up there and give a stellar performance and tell the truth, and then the jury would be like, oh, Donna involved? No way. That would be a decision that affects the rest of your life. But if you believed it, then that would be a really easy one to make. If you think you're on a bit of a tightrope and you don't quite know which way it's going to go, then that decision affects the rest of your life. So she doesn't back herself to get up there and tell her side of the story and for that to be believed. Again, maybe worried about the prosecutor cross-examination, that once it comes to the hard questions, she doesn't think she's going to be able to stand up. Also, the decision affects the rest of my life. So have lots of decisions here. The decision potentially to hire a hitman, all sorts of things. The whole trial affects the rest of your life, not just that decision. So she's using some personal definition there in that phrase. This decision affects the rest of my life, because while I get the fact that it's a life-changing decision, one she may regret making, it's not just that affects the rest of your life. You're on trial, and there's a totality of the trial here. It's not just about this. So I believe she is weighing, should she go up and take the stand or should she not? And she doesn't back herself that if she goes up on that stand, then she is just going to give a performance which is going to lead to the jury going, yeah, this is all good. There is nothing, here with Donna. Let's just find this woman not guilty. The way she speaks from the heart is something. Decision affects the rest of my life. Again, another concept of time. The rest of my life is a concept of time. Time, big importance to Donna. Then to the next question, when she's told, every criminal faces this and you haven't, she says, I know I have to choose. I was hoping I would have some time to speak to my attorneys. So big ownership here. I know I have to choose. I was hoping I would have some time to speak to my attorneys. So again, she is talking for herself here. She is standing up and talking for herself and owning it through the use of I and putting that pronoun in there. You could say that sentence or something similar, saying, yeah, I know that, or something, but she puts I in a hell of a lot. Then she uses past tense. I was hoping I would have some time to speak to my attorneys. So this means that at this time, she doesn't have that hope. I was hoping I would have some time to speak to my attorneys. If she was pleading for time now, she may well have said it's something in the present tense. I'm hoping I can have time to speak to my attorneys. Please, can I have time to speak to my attorneys? That would be in the present tense, but no, as she's talking here, it's in the past tense. All the hope is over there. And right now here in the present tense, that's gone. I was hoping I would have some time to speak to my attorneys. And the last thing I want to point out is that speak to my attorneys. Now, I know we sometimes use speak to when we mean speak with, have a conversation, a two-way conversation. Sometimes we use speak to when we just want to say we're talking to one person. I will speak to him, and tell him off. I always think when someone says speak to, then it suggests that speak to is actually speaking to and not listening to. Not hearing from. So Donna's words there just say that she wants to speak to her attorneys. She doesn't actually say speak with my attorneys and have a two-way conversation. And look, we use those almost interchangeably, but I do think they reveal something about your personality. And if you think you're going to speak to someone, you think you're going to at least dominate the conversation that you have with them. So I think, again, something there about this arrogance of Donna. We've seen this sort of controlling and trying not to be pinned down by the judge. Thinks the same thing when she deals with the attorneys. I will have some time to speak to my attorney. The Donna Adelson trial concluded this week and the verdict is in.
At this time, I will publish the verdict. We, the jury, find as follows as to count one of the indictment, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Mrs. Adelson, control yourself.
Now, Donna did not take the stand, but her defense witnesses did. And their words mattered, and in this episode I'll show you how repeated narratives, evasions, carefully crafted statements from them may have sealed Donna's fate, and how the jury could not have failed to notice the patterns in their statements. Welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If you're new to this, what I do here is different from anywhere else. I strip away everything apart from the words that are said by the people at the centre of the story, and then I use my process of statement investigation to give you the key to seeing deception, where the truth is, and also the motivations of the person talking. It's a process that I use with investigators, corporate clients, and the media to get a deep understanding of what is going on. So the Donna Adelson trial. Convicted Donna has been of her involvement in the murder of Dan Markel. Now, this is week 2 of the trial. I've been doing daily updates. There is a playlist for that if you want to catch up with them and see the breakdowns of the key evidence given in court each day during the trial. And each week I was doing a deep dive, not a daily deep dive, that'll be a lot of work, doing a deep dive into some of the most important testimony. This week it is Donna's defense week, and she brought many people on the stand to testify. Well, I'm sure she thought they'd be testifying on her behalf, but I'm not so sure they did, as we're going to see in this episode. Because I want you to think like the jury. You see, we all have a sixth sense about so many things. It's our gut instinct, whatever you want to call it. And I believe some of that is triggered by the words we hear and the patterns that we see in the words that we hear. And one of the things I think that we work with is this feeling of satisfaction. When we hear someone talking, are we satisfied by the answer? Are we satisfied by what they said? Or does it leave little alarm bells going off and questions in our mind? Because I think when the jury were listening to a lot of the people that Donna nominated to talk on her behalf, I think those alarm bells, that sixth sense would be going off with the jury, and we'll look at why that is. So they may not have realised it, but they may not have picked up on the patterns as we go through, and the repeated patterns, it would have sunk in further and further. So we're going to look at some of the defence witnesses The other thing I want you to do as we're going through this, see if you can spot the theme that I spot. In all the witnesses we're going to look at, there is a common theme in everything that not in everything they talk about. There's a common theme though that in everyone that we're going to hear from. So let's start off with one of the defense witnesses. This is Linda Bailey. She's a family attorney and she is familiar with the case that was brought in the divorce of Wendi Adelson, Donna's daughter, and Dan Markel, the murder victim, and also Wendy's ex-husband. So let's listen to some of the cross-examination from Linda Bailey.
Do you agree that a case, as a lawyer, might be routine, whereas to the parties, it's the most important thing in the world?
To some degree. That's one reason I called Kristen, is Miss Adamson, in particular, of the lawyers in our community of the family law bar, is extremely measured and calm. And I find that when I litigate against her, we reach resolutions, that people stay measured and calm, and we get things done. She's not one of the other lawyers in town who may stir cases up or play on those emotions. So our job as lawyers is to explain to our clients when we get emotion. If I get something, for example, that, although I've never had, something similar to what Mr. Markel would file, the immediate response is to call your client and go, I know you're going to read this at first glance, so it's going to seem messy. But there's no legal basis for this, so don't worry. And my understanding is that is what she communicated to Wendi.
Right, so there is the question to Linda. Do you agree that a case as a lawyer might be routine, whereas to the parties it's the most important thing in the world? And the first thing that she does is agree a bit. She says, to some degree. And then the rest of it is extra, because this is a question that really requires a very short answer. Yes, I do. No, I don't. However, she wants to talk more now. When people talk extra, it's always very revealing. It shows what's in their head. It shows maybe what they want to get across, or maybe it's something they feel safe talking about. It avoids another question being asked. The longer you can talk in court, the less chance there is of being asked another question. So maybe that is what is going on here. Now, she says, to some degree, and then there's the extra. That's one of the reasons I called Kristen, is Miss Adelson in particular, of the lawyers in our community of the family law bar, is extremely measured and calm. And I find that when I litigate against her, we reach resolutions that people stay measured and calm, and we get things done. She's not one of the other lawyers in town who may stir up cases or play on those emotions. So what we have here is an agreement there that this might be the most important thing in the world. Yeah, to some degree. She talks about the other lawyers who stir up emotions and how she avoids those lawyers. It's all extra. It's all in agreement with the question. She could have just said yes, but instead she tells us why she deals with Kristen Adamson for some reason. Comfort, safety, or is it to get across how nice and reasonable these people are, these lawyers are, that we're dealing with the divorce? And then she continues. More extra. And she says, so. And it's not beginning an answer with so, but this is an explanation that we're getting. She's going to give us an explanation. So I think really here, she's in a either comfortable zone and she wants to do some explaining, because explaining who you are or what you're about or what goes on, that's easier than sitting facing another question on cross-examination, especially during a murder trial, especially when you're on the defense witness list. So our job as lawyers is to explain to our clients when we get emotion. Now, this is really strange. At first glance, you might not notice it, or at first listen, you might not notice it, but just let's go through it. If I get something, for example, although I've never had something similar to what Mr. Markel would file, the immediate response is to call your client and go, I know you're going to read this at first glance. What? So if I get something, although I never have had something, so it should stop there because you've never had anything like this happen. But then you say, if I get this thing that I never get, then what I do is call my client. Huh? Is this made up? Is this constructed? Did this happen? I'll tell you what I think's going on here. She is on a mission to say that Dan Markel, by the way, remember this guy's the murder victim. She is on a mission to make him sound as unreasonable as possible. Why? Because Donna's response to Dan Markel and some of the things around the divorce was angry, and this is explaining away Donna's anger. I believe this is what she's doing. She's saying Donna's anger was reasonable because Dan Markel was not reasonable. Nice strategy, huh? So this thing, if I get something, even though I've never had something, if I did get the thing I never had, what I normally do is, what? I think this is all, and this is not true. This is just to slip in the unreasonable behaviour of Dan Markel. So it's going to seem messy, but there's no legal basis for this, so don't worry. And my understanding is that was what was communicated to Wendi. So in that question and answer, she talks about how she answers in general. Then when she says when she gets something like Dan filed, even though Dan has never filed it, she's just on one really there. So she gives limited agreement to the point, but then she only talks about the point and how it can be a highly charged, a very important thing for the people involved. I think she had to hit a point in the script that she had decided that she was going to deliver for whatever reason, whatever motivation. She wants to testify on behalf of Donna and kind of say that Dan was a really annoying person. And the only way to do that is to talk about what she does normally in this thing that she never ever has experienced. And it's a general question where she is asked in general about divorces, and she answers more specifically about the divorce of Wendi and Dan. That's something we don't see a lot. Quite often we see a specific question being asked and someone gives a general answer. So, what time did you get up in the morning? I usually get up between 6 and past. You didn't answer the question specifically, you talked in general. Here, she's asked in general about divorces, but she answers and moves it to a specific about the divorce between Wendi and Dan. I think because she's got to hit those scripts, she's got to talk about this divorce. That is why she is there. So that's the first thing we're going to see from Linda. Now, coming up later in this episode, Donna's best friend, Anne Cunningham, took the stand, and she's very, very similar to Linda with the scripts. Here's another one from Linda.
And when you communicate these things to your clients, hey, this is no big deal, this is no problem, this is a bunch of gibberish, do they always accept that?
Well, that's not the way I would present it, but...
Do they ever get upset about the gibberish in the pleadings, the offensive materials in the pleadings, regardless of whether or not it's going to impact their chance of success in court? It can be emotionally charged, can it?
Well, I would say annoying more than emotionally charged.
You would not say that divorce and child custody issues are emotionally charged?
They can be, but in this case, they weren't.
They weren't? How do you know?
From the pleadings, because I don't have 10,000 pages in front of me.
You're not in the mind of the people whose lives are impacted by these pleadings. It's not just about pieces of paper and a binder, is it?
I don't think that's what I said.
People's lives are impacted by the decisions that go on in court, which for you are routine. Would you agree?
In this instance, they reached agreement on all issues, so they had complete control of what was coming out of the court.
Ma'am, could you please answer my question? Are people's lives impacted in drastic ways by routine matters that we see in court as lawyers?
People's lives change after divorce, certainly.
How do you think all this is playing with the jury? Is it setting off that sixth sense? Are the answers, are what she's saying satisfying? When you communicate these things to clients, hey, this is no big deal, this is no problem, this is a bunch of gibberish, do they always accept that? And the answer starts with the word well. That means I'm not going to answer your question. It's a siren, it's an alarm, it's an alert. I'm not going to answer your question. I'm going to give an explanation. I'm going to say something longer. I'm going to give you some reasons, or I'm going to argue with your question. Well, that's not the way I would present it, but... And she tries again. Do they ever get upset about the gibberish in the pleadings, the offensive materials in the pleadings, regardless of whether or not it's going to impact their chance of success in court? It can be emotionally charged, can't it? And then the response comes, I would say annoying more than emotionally charged. So she finally comes to some sort of answer, but she does kind of argue again with it, which is fine if that's her opinion. But you'll notice that it's, I would say annoying more than emotionally charged. So she's not denying it's emotionally charged. So the very first question, these things can be emotionally charged. There can be emotionally charged people here or situations here. Would have been a straightforward answer, but it's taken her a long time to get here. I would say annoying more than emotionally charged, but more than does not rule out the fact it can be emotionally charged. You would not say that divorce and child custody issues are emotionally charged, she's asked. And the response from Linda is they can be, but in this case, they weren't. So they can be, but when we say something with a but in it, what comes after the but is always more important. It's always a higher priority to the person talking. In this case, they weren't, is what she says. So once again, we've got this move to the specific. She's been asked questions in general about divorce cases, but she cannot wait to talk about the Dan Markel, Wendi Adelson divorce case and how this case was calm, placid, sedate, serene. That's the impression that she wants to give us. So she has no time for talking about things being emotionally charged or people being difficult in divorces, because that's not the script and message that she wants to convey on behalf of herself. Donna, I don't know. They can be emotionally charged, but in this case, they weren't. They weren't, asks the prosecutor. How do you know? From the pleadings, because I don't have 10,000 pages in front of me. It's put to her, you're not in the mind of the people whose lives are impacted by these pleadings. It's not just about the piece of paper in a binder, is it? And she says, I don't think that's what I said. So again, no desire to give a full and helpful answer. Do you think that's going down well with the jury? Even if they don't see specifically the tactics that I'm pointing out here. And I've not done this in real time. I did watch it in real time, but since then I've had the transcripts and I've pored over it and looked at words and looked at phrases, looked at concepts, gone back to the beginning and done it again. I've done all that so I can point this out to you. The jury haven't. They're watching it in real time, but they will not be satisfied by these answers. They just will not sink in and hit in with them. I don't think that's what I said. It's not very straightforward. It's leaving some... That could be what I said. Georgia, the prosecutor, says people's lives are impacted by the decisions that go on in court, which for you are routine. Would you agree? And once more, in this instance, they reached an agreement on all issues. So once more, she does not want to talk in general. She wants to just go here and say how calm and placid this was. In this instance, they reached agreement on all issues. Now, they did reach agreement on all issues as far as I know, but that doesn't mean that it was not emotionally charged. It does not mean there was not a lot of consternation or anger or anything like that, because that could have all happened in between. Here's where we want to be. Here's the agreement we want to get to, and Boomf. She's not talking about any of that at all. She just wants to talk about the fact that they reached an agreement. In this instance, again, she's been asked about the general situation and she just wants to keep talking about this case. They had complete control of what was coming out of court. The extra is always telling. She wants to say they had complete control out of what was coming out in court. She wasn't asked anything about that, but that's the message that she wants to give. She wants to, and I think she's prepared to do this, and she has worked on what the story is. She wants to come away thinking, I told them that this divorce ended in agreement, therefore there was no emotionally charged people around this. There was no anger involved in the whole process, because if I just focus on this agreement that was reached, all of the other stuff I can make go away. The prosecutor realises the question has not been answered. Ma'am, would you please answer my question? Are people's lives impacted in drastic ways by routine matters that we see in court as lawyers? And she says, people's lives change after divorce, certainly. So she's taken the change in drastic ways by routine matters we see in court as lawyers to people's lives change after divorce. Just change, not she's taking the drasticness out again. She just wants to make this all seem normal, and nothing much has happened. So here, she wants to keep bringing it back to Dan and Wendy's divorce just all the time. That's what she wants to talk about. She does not want to talk about divorce, family law in general, and she wants to avoid any sense that it could have been emotionally charged. Now, why would that be? Why? Because what's in it for her for saying that this was not emotionally charged at points? That only plays well for Donna. It doesn't particularly seem to play well for her. She could just admit what had happened or what she'd seen, but she really wants to say this wasn't emotionally charged. No. This wasn't emotionally charged, because she avoids every single aspect of the question that could lead to that. And if you think she's avoiding now, she's going to be asked a question about the fact that Wendi and Donna referred to Dan Markel as Jibbers. Now, earlier in her testimony, Linda had said Jibbers was a name used because he speaks gibberish. Anyone who watched more of the trial will know that that is not the case.
Jibbers, according to the evidence in this case, means Jew in boots. It's not a flattering term by that definition or by your definition of someone that speaks gibberish. Can we agree it's not a flattering term?
No, it's probably not flattering, but I've seen far, far worse.
You've seen worse.
I have.
If Mr. Markel wasn't paying by the deadline, isn't that something that would be potentially upsetting to the parties or their family members?
I don't know how upsetting $80,000 would be. I don't know.
$80,000 is a lot of money, isn't it, Miss Bailey?
It depends on who you are.
Exactly. So we'd have...
It's a lot of money. Let's just agree on that. It's a lot of money. Gibbers, according to the evidence in this case, means Jew in boots. It's not a flattering term by that definition, or even by your definition of someone that speaks gibberish. Can we agree it's not a flattering term? She says, no, it's probably not flattery, but I've seen far, far worse. No, it's probably not flattery. I mean, really? Calling someone a Jew in boots or even someone that speaks gibberish is definitely not flattery. So why are you trying to turn this down and turn the severity of this down? Once again, that all works in Donna's favour, doesn't it? It doesn't work in your favour. It just seems to be that you wanted to make sure that things are framed in Donna's favour. No, it's probably not flattery, but I've seen far, far worse. It's put to her, you've seen worse? And she says, I have. Now, I believe that. I have is one of the simplest answers that she's given. It directly addresses the question. It's very short, so she's not going extra or trying to persuade us or anything like that. I do believe she has seen worse names used than gibbers. But where was this? You know, when she was being asked about emotionally destructive cases and emotionally charged cases, you know, names worse than gibbers that she's seen being used. She wasn't bothering mentioning them now, but when it becomes favourable to Donna to mention the fact that far worse goes on, then she's quite willing to tell us that far worse goes on in divorce cases. If Mr. Markel wasn't paying by the deadline, isn't that something you would be potentially upsetting to the parties or family members? And then again, she has to avoid any concept or any idea that upset was involved here. I don't know how upsetting $80,000 would be. I don't know. I mean, someone's not paying you 80 grand. It's going to be a little bit upsetting. 80 grand is a lot of money, isn't it, Miss Bailey? It depends on who you are, is what she says. So she cannot bring herself to say that the family members were not upset about this. The truth will always leak out. She just wants to avoid it and say, I don't know how upsetting it would be. You know, she doesn't say, hey, by the way, I don't know how upset they were, or they were not upset by that. I'm talking about the Wendi and Donna Adelson. She just says, I don't know how that would be. So that's in the future as well. So she's not talking about that precise thing. I can surmise from that they were upset about this £80,000 not being playing, and she wants to hide it. So here, the attempt to move away and deflect from any sign of update continues from her. I mean, overall, what is someone avoiding? That's what to look at. What are they avoiding? Rather than speaking directly to it, she wants to avoid any talk of upset, emotional upset or anything like that. It's very important to her to avoid all of this. She was on a mission to say that this divorce was all plain sailing and there was no upset going down. Listen, the bestie is coming up and Cunningham is on the stand next. By the way, don't tell anyone else, just between me and you, the next full episode of Never a Truer Word will look at Charlie Adelson's testimony in his trial. And after that, we're doing some work on pulling together every single version of the story of the drive to Trescott that Wendi Adelson has told in court and police interviews. Don't tell anyone. Those are the things we're working on here at Never a Truer Word. Now listen, do you ever feel like you're not being told the full story? Familiar? Yeah, well, look, you're right. It's not just happening in court with defence witnesses. It's happening all around us all the time. And I am here to giving you the key to seeing deeper, because this is about hearing the world with new ears, and I'm on a mission to share this with as many people as possible. So listen, if you want to unlock the secret yourself, subscribe to this channel or follow it and join in the movement. There is a whole treasure trove of archives to be discovered as well, including a lot on the Adelsons and a lot on court trials if you're interested in those things. And do you know someone who needs this? Someone who deserves to hear the truth. If you hit the like button, this helps this content get out to more people. If you hit the share button, you're sharing it with people who may need this. It's a wonderful gift to give, so do pass it on. And every single click, every single share fuels the fire because it allows me to dig deeper into people like the Adelsons, analyse further, and bring this life-changing skill to even more people. I do regularly hear from grateful audience members who've navigated tricky situations in their life using the listening skills that they've learned on this channel. So your like, your share, your recommendation could help someone like that. It is a great gift to give. Right, let's listen to the best friend now of Wendi Adelson, who's testifying on her behalf. It's a woman called Anne Cunningham.
Now, you indicated that you would talk on the phone with Miss Adelson. Did you use home phones to do that during some of the period of time?
Pardon me, I'm sorry?
Home phones, like landlines?
Sometimes.
Okay, did you use cell phones?
Many times.
Okay. Did you travel with Harvey and Donna Adelson?
Many times.
Okay, and as part of your travel, did you go overseas?
Yes.
And in your travel overseas, did you ever use any of the applications that you can put on your phone?
Yes.
Okay, and do you recall which applications you all used?
WhatsApp and Viber.
And what was the purpose of using those?
Because you didn't get charged, for, and also to keep in communication. If we were on a cruise or on a land trip, where are you? When are we meeting? Because they were free.
Okay.
It was easy.
So while you were overseas, instead of having to pay increased rates on your cellular plan from the United States, you could use this app for free?
Yes.
Okay. Did you use those apps with Mrs. Adelson to hide any information from law enforcement, like encrypted, so that they wouldn't know what was going on?
No.
Okay.
Okay, by the way, I asked you at the beginning of the episode, could you spot a theme developing, something that was spoken about in all the testimonies? Any ideas? I'll tell you at the end of the episode. Now, this is a bit of scene setting, really. You indicated you would talk on the phone with Miss Adelson. Did you use home phones to do that during some of the period of time? And Anne says, pardon me, I'm sorry. Now, look, we've only got one instance of this. This could be her thinking, I need to buy some thinking time here. What story was it that I'm prepared to tell? Or what is the truth here in this instance? Or it could be genuine. She did not catch the question and she's saying, pardon me, I'm sorry. Home phones like landlines. She says, sometimes. Did you use cell phones? Many times, she says. So let's just compare the sometimes. Sometimes they used landlines. Many times they used cell phones. I think they probably used cell phones to speak to each other more than landlines. It's there in their words. Cell phones, many times. Home phones and landlines, sometimes. Nothing guilty about that, by the way. Just an observation that you can tell from the words how they contacted each other. Did you travel with Harvey and Donna Adelson? Many times. As part of your travel, did you go overseas? Yes. And in your travel overseas, did you use any of these applications that you can put in your phone? She says, yes. Interesting. She seems ready to say yes. I mean, rewind and have another look at it. She seems ready to answer that question before the question's finished. In your travel overseas, did you use any of these? She's about to say yes before she knows what the question is. Did you know that question was coming? Is this all prepared for? Anyway, she says yes. And these are yes, yes, yes answers. They're all quite believable. I'm guessing she did use phones like that. She did go overseas and travel many times with Harvey and Donna Adelson. And do you recall which applications you all used? She says WhatsApp and Viber. WhatsApp and Viber. She's listing something there. WhatsApp and Viber, which suggests they used WhatsApp most. That's the one she's most used to, which is why it's first in the list. And Viber second, the one that they used least often. Again, I'm only pointing out things that I notice. I'm not saying this implies any sort of innocence or guilt there. It's just how you can tell things from the way that people order words. And what was the purpose of using those? Because you didn't get charged, and also to keep in communication. If you were on a cruise or a land trip, where are you? Where are you? Where are we meeting? Just because they were free. Got that word just there. Just because they were free. Was there anything more to it? Because just tends to be a word to just minimize. Something small's happening. Don't pay any attention to it. It's just because they were free. There's no more to this. Was there more to it? Did they use Viber and WhatsApp for any other reason than they were free? Okay, so it was easy. So while you were overseas, instead of having to pay increased rates on your cellular plan for the United States, I managed to say cellular better than the attorney there, you could use this app for free. I know I can't talk about how anyone talks. It's very rude of me. Yes, says Anne. Did you use those apps with Mrs. Adelson to hide any information from law enforcement, like encrypted, so that they didn't know what was going on? And she says no. So just from this bit at all, this is a bit of background and scene setting. Remember those details about the apps and why the apps were used. It's going to become relevant later as we hear more from Donna Adelson's best friend, supposedly talking in her defense.
I want to talk to you, I'll lead you forward to the date that Danny Markel was murdered. That was July the 18th of 2014. Do you recall speaking to Mrs. Adelson on that date?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and can you explain to us how you were contacted and the nature of the conversation?
I was called, and Donna was quite hysterical.
Okay.
And she said to me, Danny's been shot.
While she was upset, what did she indicate to you?
She told me that Danny had been shot and that they were going to Tallahassee and that she was very concerned and worried about Wendi and the boys, whether they were in danger.
Okay.
Because she did not know who had shot him.
Okay. And did she indicate whether she was concerned about Danny and him being in the hospital?
Absolutely.
Okay.
A bonus absolutely at the end there for regular people here. I broke this whole thing down in one of the daily episodes that I did, so I'm not going to go into this one in too much detail, just to point out a couple of things that I noticed. Do you recall speaking with Mrs. Adelson on that date, which was the date that Dan Markel was shot? She says, yes, I do. Quite a truthful answer on the surface of it, although with Anne, we've already seen, does she have some answers prepared already? Is she willing to say yes, no, quite easily to things? Then she's asked the question of, can you explain to us how you were contacted and the nature of that conversation? Now, I picked out here, I was called, is what she said. Not Donna called me, I was called. Now, it strikes me, if you had a list of talking points, or here are how things were, here's in your memory, in your mental list, here's how to say things happened, even though they didn't happen. I was called would be one, because we wouldn't normally say, I spoke to my best friend, I was called. No, we'd say she called me, they called me, whatever it is we'd say. I was called stood out to me, thinking, did this call really happen? And then further on in there, when it's asked, indicate the nature of the call, she goes a little bit extra. She says that Donna phone said that Dan had been shot. She was very worried about the boys. And then she says, because she did not know who had shot him. Now, Donna's not investigating the crime here. The police don't know who has done it, or they don't know. No one knows. But no, what she doesn't want is to get across this. No one knew who shot Dan at this point. It's important to Anne to say it was Donna who did not know anything after Dan Markel was shot. She did not know who had shot him. It came to me with that I was called, with that she did not know who had shot him. There was a purpose to this answer. And the purpose to this answer was that a phone call happened, I was called, that may not have happened, and to say Donna knew nothing, which is potentially the truth. But the way she phrased it, she did not know nothing, tells me that she wanted everyone to know Donna knew nothing, not no one knew anything at the time. However, there was a problem with this, because one of the next witnesses was a phone call investigator, and there was no call to Anne on the night of Dan Markel's murder from Donna in her call logs on her phone. Now, that's a problem for Anne, because she said this call happened. So Anne was summoned back onto the stand to discuss this matter.
And returned to the courthouse?
Yes.
To tell us what? That you used Viber or WhatsApp to make that phone call?
Yes.
So it wasn't a regular phone call?
Correct.
Okay, so you misspoke earlier, or it just wasn't clear?
No, I said she called me.
Okay, and she called you and made a regular phone call on June 23rd, the month before the murder, right?
I don't recall. She made many phone calls.
And she called you on a regular line on July 20th, just 2 days after the murder. Do you recall that?
If you say so.
Okay, so you have no reason to contest that you spoke with her via regular phone call June 23rd, July 20th, and July 21st.
If it's in the record, yes.
But you're saying it was a WhatsApp or a Viber on the 18th?
Yes, they were in the car, and they often called on those apps in the car.
Would it surprise you to learn that WhatsApp didn't offer voice calls until March of 2015?
Then it was on Viber.
Must have been Viber, huh? Nothing further.
Okay then, so what have we got here? Let's go to the crux of all of that. You're saying it was a WhatsApp or a Viber on the 18th. And she says yes. Well, that's what she's saying, so she's agreeing with that, but she's then goes extra and has to do some explaining. She could just say yes, she could just leave it there, but she has to explain why this is a normal thing, why, this is something that I did not question. In fact, it's so regular, I didn't bring it up when I was testifying. However, the words that Anne uses, they're very interesting there. Yes, they were in the car, and they often called on those apps on this in the car. So she gets very stuttery, as if, she's feeling a bit of stress here. But after the yes, they were in the car. They often called on those apps in the car. Now, what is going on there? Because previously these apps were being used abroad because it was free. All of a sudden, they were being used absolutely everywhere. She didn't mention any of this when she was asked about the use of calls. Oh, we used them all the time, even when we were not abroad. It was how we communicated sometimes. Or when we were on the move, we used these apps. She didn't mention any of that there, but all of a sudden, they often called on those apps. Now, she doesn't actually say they called on that app those nights. And it's also they. It's they. They were in the car. They often called on those apps. So the nature of the call earlier, when she was asked, she did not mention they. She didn't mention that this was an en masse phone call, that this was, I guess, Harvey and Donna doing it. She said, she told me that Danny had been shot and they were going to Tallahassee. Now, those are words that you could use if you were on your way to Tallahassee. We're going to Tallahassee. But I also think that might be said slightly differently. They called me from the car. They told me Danny had been shot and that they were on their way to Tallahassee or en route to Tallahassee or anything like that. It doesn't quite match up here because she didn't mention the car. She didn't mention they earlier. All of a sudden, they were in the car. They often called on those apps in the car. Would it surprise you to learn that WhatsApp didn't offer voice calls until March of 2015? Then it was on Viber. Thank you so much, Anne. I mean, let's take some more from her.
You were best friends with her?
Yes.
Okay. And she would call and vent to you about Danny Markel?
Sometimes.
All right. And did she ever call him names?
Not to my knowledge, not to me.
Did she share with you that she was planning to offer a bribe to Mr. Markel to facilitate relocation?
I don't recall.
Did she talk to you about plans to threaten or to convert the children to Christianity in order to strong-arm Mr. Markel?
She mentioned that she had said that, and she said that was so foolish of me.
Okay. When did she say that?
I don't know whether we were together or on a phone call. I'm not sure.
Thank you, Anne. She has asked you were best friends with her, and she says yes. It's a yes, no question, and she gives that one-word answer, yes. An indication that she's being truthful here. Okay, it's no great shakes to say that her best friend is her best friend. However, that just shows when she doesn't answer a yes, no question with a yes or no, there's more going on for her. She's on a bit of a mission. Okay, and she would call you and vent to you about Danny Markel. Sometimes, says Anne, she's downplaying that there. I don't think the intent of the question, or any reasonable person would think that the intent of the question was all the time Donna would be on the phone ranting and venting about Danny Markel, but she feels the need to soften it, turn down the severity in Donna's favour a lot. So she says sometimes. Right, and did she ever call him names? That means, did she ever call him names on these calls? And she says, not to my knowledge, not to me. I think that she realises she slipped up slightly there. And what happened is that she said, not to my knowledge, which is not an appropriate answer to did she ever call him names in brackets, because we're talking about these phone calls when Donna was venting about Dan Markel. Not to my knowledge. I think she really meant, I don't remember there, which is one of those really handy things to use in court. She realises she can't use that because she said, not to my knowledge, it's the wrong thing. She says, not to me. But notice that both not to my knowledge and not to me mean it's very open in Anne's head and thoughts that Donna could have called Dan Markel names, because she says, not to my knowledge. Could have happened, it just wasn't to my knowledge, and not to me. She could have done it to someone else. So she's not really helping here at all. She's just saying, I don't know anything about it, but she's not talking in the wider picture. Did she share with you that she was planning to offer a bribe to Mr. Markel to facilitate relocation? Now Anne plays the I don't recall card there, a very good one to use. And then she's asked, did she talk to you about plans to threaten or to convert the children to Christianity in order to strong-arm Mr. Markel. She mentioned that she had said that, and she said that was so foolish of her, so she's gone a little bit extra there. She could have just said, she mentioned that she said that, or yes, she did talk to me about that. Just keep it nice and closed and clamped down. But Anne goes extra here, because not only does she agree that, yeah, she said that, but also, in Donna's favour, we all need to be nice to Donna, she said, that was so foolish of me. So she's gone extra. Just like the family lawyer we saw earlier, when she's gone extra, this defence witness is always in Donna's favour. And then Anne is asked, okay, when did she say that? And she says, I don't know, I'm not sure. We were together, or I'm not sure whether we were together on a phone call, I'm not sure. So I don't know whether we were together or on a phone call, I'm not sure. She was asked about when. When did she say that? Timing. That's what when requires as a question. And Anne goes to situation. I don't know if we were together or on a phone call. I'm not sure. So she, for some reason, doesn't want to say the when, during the divorce proceedings, maybe. I don't know. We were together or on a phone call. I'm not sure. But Anne, they're in court on a real mission. No, the mission is not to answer the questions. The mission is to say things that are positive about Donna. This is Richard Schargin. This is a friend of Harvey and Donna Adelson's, and he testified to the direct examination. So he was the one that suggested the one-way tickets to Vietnam that Donna and Harvey very suspiciously had bought so that they could leave the country, in their words, to clear their heads, and many people thinking they wanted to leave the country to one with no extradition. Very suspicious they had a one-way ticket, but Richard has the reason why they wanted a one-way ticket. He said a one-way ticket would be cheaper for you guys, so he was the guy that suggested it. However, on cross, something's put to him.
Do you recall giving a deposition? It was by Zoom, but I was present, August 29th, 2024.
Vaguely.
And in that deposition, weren't you asked, so did you make any of the decisions when to travel or how to travel, or were you just the conduit to the technology? And your answer was the conduit for the technology.
Yes.
But today you're saying you're the one that suggested that they fly one way.
Objection, Your Honor, improper impeachment.
Overruled.
Isn't that right?
Well, to me, that's part of being the conduit, just suggesting.
You were there because you were more computer savvy than Harvey or Donna, right?
I was there that day.
Yes, sir. To help with the computer is what you said in the deposition.
Well, once we got there, I was there because my wife had done estate planning for them.
Okay, but what you did in reference to the travel planning was help with the computer.
Yes.
Because you were more computer savvy than these two.
Correct.
Okay. But today you're saying you suggested the one-way flight, right?
I just offered my suggestion.
Okay, so this guy here is playing a very similar pattern to what we've seen. And do you notice that the people that Donna has chosen to go up in the stand, they seem to have I don't think they're used to being questioned by authority or having their authority questioned. They don't seem to like it. And how do you think that is playing with the jury? So he is asked by cross-examination, do you recall giving a deposition? It was by Zoom. I was present August 29th, 2024. And he says, vaguely. Once more, all these memories are not very certain when it seems like they might not play into Donna's favour from her friends. Vaguely. And again, I think it's like, don't push me on this one because I'm going to be vague about this. And in that deposition, weren't you asked, so did you make any of the decisions when to travel or how to travel, or were you just the conduit to technology? And your answer was the conduit for the technology. But today you're saying you're the one that suggested they fly one way. There's an objection. And the prosecutor says, isn't that right? And Richard does what we've seen from many of these witnesses. Well, so here comes a explanation, not anything that you're going to expect. I'm not going to answer your question directly. I'm going to give you an explanation or a reason or an excuse, and I'm going to flag that up by starting with, well, to me, So this is a personal definition coming here. This is not the version of conduit that most of us would use. This is just a personal one, which is going to get him off, because this is what I meant by conduit. I don't care what everyone else meant by conduit. This is what I mean by conduit. To me, that's part of being the conduit. Just suggesting. Just is there again. Just suggesting. I was just suggesting one way would be cheaper, not, well, you're never coming back. A one-way ticket would be, why get a return? Why don't you just get yourself the one-way ticket? Just suggesting, I think, again, could be hiding more of a conversation that went on about why they had this one-way ticket. You'll notice the technology has disappeared. Part of being the conduit is just suggesting. He doesn't talk about the technology that he was facilitating there, which is what he said in the deposition. He was a conduit to the technology. Technology has disappeared. And by the way, the definition of conduit is a means of transmitting or distributing. So she puts to him, you were there because you were more computer savvy than Harvey or Donna. Right, I was there that day is the question that comes from him. This is the question to a question. I think he's buying himself some thinking time because he realises he's in a bit of a jam. The testimony he's given in court is not quite chiming with the deposition. Yes, sir, to help with the computer. That's what you said in the deposition, is it? And he says, well, once we got there, I was there because my wife had done estate planning for them. Does that answer the question? Once we got there, I suppose it does. But you'll notice now someone's appeared, because before the technology disappeared, now he was there as a we with his wife, I'm presuming, and that's because his wife had done estate planning for them. So this is going all over the place while he tries to make this sit right with the impression that he wants to give, which is that I suggested a one-way ticket would be cheaper, nothing more, nothing less. Okay, but what you did in reference to travel plannings was help with the computer. He says, yes, because you were more computer savvy than these two. He says, correct. But today, you're saying you suggested the one-way flight, right? And he says, yeah, I just offered my suggestion. We have that word just again. Please don't ask any more. I want you to focus only on this thing I've said just. I just offered my suggestion. Another witness whose answers will not be satisfying. So that's Donna Adelson's defence. What did you think of them? Do let me know in the comments if you want. For me, listen, there is a theme with all of these people that Donna has chosen to speak on her behalf. Avoidance of certain things that the prosecutors especially want to bring up, diversion away onto other issues. When they go extra, it's always in Donna's favour. It's always when they want to actually volunteer more than they were asked for. It's always to make Donna look good, and they have a hazy memory when it suits them too. Now, imagine how unsatisfying that was for the jury. Their senses will be working overtime of, why are they avoiding this? Why is she not answering the question? I want an answer to that question that makes me feel like I've heard an answer, an honest answer to that question. And when person after person after person that Donna's chosen to come up does that, that's compounded on the jury. I'm not saying these guys are the reason that Donna was found guilty, because there was a lot more evidence than what we've looked at, but these guys could have helped. But by that avoidance, diversion, that evasion and not answering the questions, I don't think they did anything at all that worked for Donna. And did you spot the theme? Did you spot the theme that all those witnesses we looked at spoke about? It was money. Money was involved in the divorce. Good old Anne, they used WhatsApp and Viber because they were free. It was saving them money, and saving money as well was the reason that Richard gave for the one-way trip. A very rich family, upset over £80,000, but wanting to cut and save wherever they could. The theme was money, and I think that if you look around the whole murder of Dan Markel, I'm not saying that human relations did not play a part in it, but I think money was a very, very big issue with the Adelsons. What do you think? Do let me know in the comments. If you can, you'll find all the links to the socials at neveratruerword.com. Also there, you will find podcasts galore where you can listen to more about the Adelsons or more people on trial or in trials as well, and video versions of that too. And if you want to join the Facebook group to discuss the words with other people who are really into talking about what statements reveal, you'll find that link on neveratruerword.com as well. Charlie Adelson coming soon. We'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.